Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our final live feed update on the morning of the Big Brother Canada 6 finale. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Matt. How you doing, Matt?
Doing great. Very sad that this is all coming to an end. It's been a great season in my books, and yeah, happy to be here. And we have so much to talk about today, so this will be fun.
We have a lot to talk about. A bit late here this morning. There's so many things we have to talk about today before the finale. Lots of stuff about Kayla's game. We're going to go in detail about Kayla's Big Brother Canada 6 game from the start to the finish. She did the most out of anyone this season, in the final three at least. So it took a little while to compile everything. And this is going to take a little while to go through her game. We're going to go and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the amazing, the, I don't know, everything else in between. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And we also have some updates based on the information that we got yesterday on the episode. And we also got some jury videos from ET Canada that were quite enlightening as well. So we're going to go through Kayla's game and we're going to talk about those jury videos and the winners and that all of that stuff when it comes up. So toward the end of the podcast, we will speculate a bit more on what we think might happen and why Kayla might win, why Kayla might lose, and all of that stuff. So I know
we might be here until the show starts tonight. So buckle up.
Yeah. I know I definitely have an update to the Big Brother or the roundtable that we did in terms of my predictions. So this will be a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to be just talk until our breath runs out.
Is that so?
Yeah. I also am going to be streaming myself watching the finale on Twitch tonight to get the reactions. No spoilers. Make sure you stay off social media. But we're gonna hang out and watch the finale together on Twitch. So you can check that out if you want as well. I'm just gonna be talking all day long, and if you don't like it, please don't listen because you're gonna be very annoyed.
Now I'm ready for it. Let's go.
All right. So let's talk about Kayla. Very interesting thing. We've talked about at the start of everyone else's game retrospective, whatever you want to call it. And the video messages that they sent to each other, they sent to themselves from the start of this season. Derek's talked about, like, you can play this game, you can be loyal, you can be a great person. Kayla's said specifically, if you are in the final three with a showmance, you'd better cut him. Why was it that specific? Why does she need to tell herself that? Why is she listening to herself from the preseason in a situation where the context is completely different? I don't know, but she is directly telling herself, you need to cut your showmance. You'd better do that. If you don't do that, your past self will be very disappointed with you. Very relevant video.
Yeah, she came into the game with a plan, and she said in her preseason videos she had just this, and we were watching the videos and we were like, wow, this is really repetitive, because she was saying the same thing over and over again about how she's a competitive person, she's really bubbly, and those are the two things that she thinks will carry her to the end of the game. She thinks that nobody's going to see her competitive nature, and she thinks that her personality was going to carry her. So I guess she also, she wasn't telling us this unless she did, and maybe I just missed this, but yeah, the whole thing about how she's going to cut her showmance, she had this in her head coming into the house. So it's just crazy to look back. I'm like, how did she knew she was going to be in the showmance? I guess that was part of her strategy, and she just always had this plan that if she was coming into the game, Big Brother Canada, and she got into a showmance, she was not going to take them to the end. She says this multiple times throughout the season as well, which we will get into, that if somebody goes to the end and takes their showmance, they don't deserve to win. And she believes that. She told other people that, and now here she is watching this video back where she said it, and it's like, all right, well, put up or shut up.
Yeah, and it makes for a very interesting situation where she feels like she's watching this video, and in this video, and she's like she's choosing between her heart and her head is telling her that obviously she needs to cut her showmance, and she needs to disobey her heart. But as Kellen might tell you, it's not about heart versus head. Sometimes it's a combination of both, and it's very clear to me, and I think it should be very clear to most people, that she had this idea before she even entered the house, and she created the reality that she currently lives in, where the jury would be disappointed in her if she didn't cut Derek, and even if she does cut Derek, that might end up costing her the victory. She has created the situation where she is in a no-win spot, because she's talked about this all season long, and we'll talk about it as we go through her game. But I just think it's very clear up front, before she even enters the house, she says, she essentially has the opinion that you should not respect somebody that chooses to take their showmance to the end. And she is going to perpetuate that thought throughout the house, throughout the season, and that is going to come back to bite her in a really bad way.
Yeah, well, we'll say this so many times throughout the show about how she created this narrative, and she's just been pushing it forward herself this entire time. And it's really like, a lot of these jury videos, which we'll get into later, there's so much talk about how maybe they don't respect Kayla, and they might not give her the vote because she's not going to cut Derek. It's like you're saying it's because she has said all along that she knows she needs to cut him, and if she doesn't do it, she knows that she might lose. So why, whatever. But I don't know. I think I don't know if you said it yet, but I agree that it doesn't seem like it would be beneficial towards her getting the win, ultimately cutting Derek in this spot. I don't think that she expected to have Paris sitting in the final three with her, not just Paris, but a Paris, like a player who is capable of also beating her if she takes this player instead. She probably thought, she's seen John and Netta, she saw Sabrina in the end. So in her mind, she's like, all right, well, there's going to be a weaker player there that I'll be able to take with me. So of course I'm going to cut my showmance. She didn't account for the fact that, halfway through the game, they were going to get rid of all the goats. And now there's going to be a bunch of strong players in the end. And then the last remaining goat, she got rid of him. So she didn't account for that.
Exactly. She thinks about the John and Netta situation, and she forgets that the reason why it made sense to do that is because it was Sabrina sitting next to them, not just because it was, oh, you have to cut your showmance. It was, no, you have to cut your showmance because look who they're sitting next to. I'm sure we'll talk more about it as we get down to the end. But we have to go back, rewind time back to week one. Obviously, yet again, I have to say the disclaimer that the feeds were not on during week one, so we don't know a whole lot about it. We do know that Kayla was chosen to be in heaven by Andrew, so she was immune for that week. Right?
That's not true. No, she was in hell.
Sorry, yeah, she was in hell.
Yeah, she was in that comp. She didn't make it to like the final three of that group. It was Paris, Will, and or maybe it was I don't know.
Sorry, it was Liv. It was Liv that was in heaven.
Yeah.
And Kayla was in hell.
Kayla was in hell. Yeah, she was eligible to go up as one of Johnny's nominations, but we do know he ultimately went with Rosina and Allie.
Yes, this is what happens when it's not on feeds. I care very little about the show. So she was chosen to be in hell by Andrew. Equally impressive, right? Either she gets chosen to be in heaven, or she survives the block on hell, or she survives the being vulnerable on hell. She during this week, she gets involved in the showmance with Derek. She creates the real deal with Derek, Jesse, and Paris. She kind of has a thing with Maddie and Will. There was a lot of talk during week two about like Maddie is like, oh yeah, we're like just like the same person. Like I have Will and you have Derek, and like we're together. So she has a very good relationship with them. And then just in general, some decent social connections. At this time, compared to Derek, she has less connections and she's in less alliances, but that is going to flip around in the near future.
Right. And in the beginning of the game, it was like you said, it did feel like people were looking at Derek more. It was funny because, we talk about now how, they don't Derek and Kayla, the showmance, and are they going to be a thing after this? Obviously not, probably, because
Especially
all
when she
season.
cuts him. Oh boy.
Well, yeah. But all season long, it's we've been watching them, and we're like, yeah, there's really like no spark here. It was funny because when the feeds came on, we heard that there was a showmance in the house, and I remember personally, it took me at least a day or two to actually get like concrete evidence that Kayla and Derek were the showmance, because people were talking about it on feeds, and people were like mentioning it here and there, but it's just like you had to see something to believe it, and they just didn't look like they were a duo together. And eventually we found out that they were, and even as early as week 2 when the feeds came on, there was people talking about the two of them and how they're a threat, and eventually we will have to go after them. But it's just that's the thing with Big Brother Canada, or with Big Brother in general, being in a showmance, and why so many people that are in showmances go so far. Ryan was the first HOH, and I don't know if we're getting into week 2 right now, whatever. But Ryan had said something about how he knows this game and blah, blah, blah. And he knows that targeting a showmance, especially this early on, is not a good idea for his game. So it did seem like they had some room to maneuver early on.
Yeah, I believe my notes for the very first day of feeds, at the very bottom of my notes, I said, apparently Derek and Kayla are a thing.
Right. Yeah.
So that I think goes.
It was just impossible to tell. Like there was no sign. It was just like they could be in a room together, but you had no way of knowing that these were a showmance and not just people working together.
Yeah, and in comparison to Big Brother 19, where I think probably at the top of my notes on the first day of feeds, I was like, so Jess and Cody are in love with each other.
Yeah.
Rosina gets nominated up next to Ali. Johnny wins the veto. He doesn't use it. Kayla is a part of the vote to send Rosina home. And we head into week 2, where Ryan wins the HOH. And yet again, he has these one-on-one talks. And in this one-on-one talk, Kayla does not give him much information. I've talked about how Paris and Derek both gave a lot of information that ended up leaking. Kayla was smart enough not to give Ryan too much here. But she does talk about her showmance with Derek and the feelings that she has for him, so on and so forth. This is definitely going to be part of how Ryan sees Kayla in the game moving forward, and as a juror. I'm sure this conversation is part of it, but pretty harmless other than that.
Yeah, Ryan was talking about this recently, about how his, one of his biggest game regrets, which obviously makes sense, is that he got his friend evicted in the first week or second week on his HOH. You kind of have to remember, though, that early on, especially in week 1 or week 2, it's a lot of the house voting together, the house finding a common target. And early on, Andrew, as soon as he put people in hell and heaven, and it just he stood out. He wasn't connecting with anybody, and it just seemed like the house had come together and said, okay, Andrew needs to go this week. They told Ryan, all of them wanted Andrew to go. So there is there's obviously a lot going on behind the scenes of all these connections being made, with Kayla, with anybody else. But it's still this week, like she was safe because it was just the house coming together saying this is where Andrew's going to go home.
Yes, and I will give her, maybe Derek, a little bit more at this point in time, just because Derek was the more social person at the time. But I do think that Kayla and Derek were at the center of power here, and they basically were the house. So the pressure that was exerted on Ryan, I think you can originate most of that back to Derek and Kayla. More Derek at this point, but also Kayla's influence. So that is definitely a plus there. So Kayla and Derek, they talk on the feeds about how, again, their game plan, which was Kayla says, look, I know this game. I know this game like the back of my hand. I love this game. You sit there, look pretty, work your social game, make people like you, keep doing what you're doing because you're giving me the power to operate strategically, and just follow my direction, follow my lead, and we're going to make it far in this game. And that is the game plan for Dayla.
Yeah, and elsewhere in the house, Kayla's still working on some other people because she's a fan of the game and she knew what she was doing or what she wanted to do. So she's talking to other people as well at this time while she's cementing the connection with Derek. And she already started this narrative from week 2. She's having a conversation that I noted with Maddie, and she also talked to Erica where she said, "Listen, like I'm working with Derek, obviously, but like I'm playing a separate game from Derek. So if we're gonna make something happen, like we could do that. But me and Derek are playing separate games." And she even said as early as week 2, "I would never take a showmance to the final 2. I know that I couldn't beat a showmance in the end. Nobody would respect somebody who takes their showmance to the final 2." And I just, I had this noted down because just along the way, I want to, keep mentioning when she says this. So it's not even just in the past few weeks. It is along the way that she's telling people that we are playing separate games.
Yeah, which, you might say, this is like what's bad about that? She's trying to convince people that she's willing to take them to the end. I think the problem is that nobody ever believed her. Mm-hmm. All season long, nobody ever believed Kayla would ever cut Derek. So the in-game benefits to her were never apparent, right? So nobody ever believed that she would actually do that. And because they don't believe that she would do it, the end game benefits are also not there. Mm-hmm. So this turns out to be a big detriment to her game, and yes, we will continue to talk about it, unfortunately, because it might end up being one of the main reasons she
but there is a lot going on this week. I mean, besides all that, we have Hamza talking a lot about targeting Dela, which is key because we know who wins HOH the next week, which is Hamza. So he's got Dela in his sights. A lot of people in the house are talking about are scared of the showmance, whether or not they would take the shot. I think Hamza is the only one who cemented yes, I would take the shot at the next week. But we do have the have-nots this week, which is an important thing that you and Puya talked about. The connection that Hamza and Derek made while they were have-nots together, it made Hamza feel good with Derek, and we're not done with this week yet, but going into the next week, it does help them a lot that the two of them had that bonding time.
Yes, for sure. So Kayla is going to start to not trust Paris as much because, as we talked about with the Derek week, a lot of what Ryan, did when he did his one-on-one talks, he exposed a lot of information. Some of that information came from Paris. It got around to Kayla. Kayla's like, I'm feeling kind of sketchy about Paris. She wants to target Paris soon. She's not trusting Paris. And that's when the feeds go down. The veto is won by Erica. The comeback, the 7 is formed. I've mentioned these feeds going down many times because we missed a lot of important stuff here. But this alliance of 7 is formed with Kayla, Derek, Jesse, not Paris, Jesse, Ali, Liv, yes, Johnny, and Erica. Yes. That is the 7. Paris is not included because Kayla doesn't trust Paris at this moment. This is when Kayla also works a lot. We forgot to mention this time. The gate crashers have entered the game. Oh, yeah. And Kayla starts to work on Veronica quite a bit. She bonds with Veronica. She's also telling Veronica, I would never take Derek to the final 2. Who would respect somebody that would do that? And she also reveals a secret to Veronica after a little while that I am a rugby player. She has a tight bond with Veronica. She really works hard on that bond.
And I think that this is really important for her because, like I had just said about how Hamza was looking at Dela like a target, Veronica and Hamza had been starting to get a little close. And we know that in the next week when Hamza wins the HOH, he had won it with Veronica. And that was when they had the, both of them were, Veronica felt like she was HOH that week. And she had just an equal amount of input as she would if she was a regular HOH. So the fact that Kayla goes to work here on Veronica and makes Veronica feel comfortable, because I think one of the conversations was about how Andrew and Veronica were talking, and not Andrew, Ryan. And Ryan told Kayla that Veronica didn't trust Dela and all this stuff. And Kayla went to Veronica and was like, hey, listen, I like you. I don't believe him. I know that you don't want me out. I want to work with you. We're both rugby players. There's no reason for us to go after each other. And since Veronica started to feel good with Kayla, and she goes back to Hamza, and having both of them have Hamza connecting with Derek, Veronica connecting with Kayla, it really does wonders to keep them in a safe spot in this part of the game.
Yes, absolutely. So things are looking pretty decent, but despite the fact that she's got the 7-person alliance and everything, people like Will and Maddie are starting to be concerned.
Mhm.
Will and Maddie are starting to talk to Paris about like we need to start targeting Dela. Hamza is still pretty anti-Dela right now. Marin is very anti-Dela, and the Marin, Andrew, Ryan camp are all sort of like, oh wow, Dela, they are the center of power in the house. It became obvious, and so what happens is that Paris, when Maddie and Will talk to her about potentially targeting Dela, Paris is going to have a conversation with Olivia. We talked about this yesterday, where she finds out that Olivia is kind of into Jesse, and so Paris wants to target Olivia, and so Paris unknowingly gets herself back in with Kayla by coming up to Kayla and saying, hey, Liv is dangerous. And Kayla's like, why? Because she's jealous of me. Okay, that's fine. Oh, also she wants to target you. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait, what? Kayla, Liv wants to target me? Yeah, Liv and Allie, they've been talking some smack. I've been having to protect you. And Kayla's like, oh, thank God Paris is on my side. She's giving me some great info. Screw the 7. Derek, we need to be all in on the real deal. We thank God for Paris.
Yeah, the Paris and Kayla connection has been one of the season-long storylines. Maybe not so much in the episode, but definitely on the feeds. Every so often, when they would both go their separate ways and start, working on their own different people, and then they'd come back together and they would share information. Or especially, when Paris was telling Kayla all this, there was a lot in the beginning of the game of Kayla not trusting Allie and Olivia once Paris got this influence into her, and it's a lot more than I remembered going back and looking at all of it, because just what we remember from the past few weeks is about how Allie and Olivia and then Dela were such a strong 4. It wasn't like that until a little bit later on, when that was during the Jesse getting evicted week that came back together. But during this week and leading into the next HOH, there really is there's no great feelings from Kayla towards Allie and Olivia, because she's just been hearing that the two of them are considering targeting Dela, and that's all she can think about. She was just so focused on they're both coming after me, or specifically Allie. I think it seemed like there was a lot of Allie that she wasn't liking.
Yes. And Paris essentially gets everyone whipped up into we're all going to be targeting Allie and Liv next week. So most people are going to be doing that. This is the most danger that Allie and Liv are in for a while. And Kayla's going to talk to Johnny about like, oh, Johnny, Allie and Liv are coming after me. We need to go after them. And Johnny's the one person, and we will talk about Johnny some more. Johnny being one of the major thorns in Kayla's side, one of the reasons why she was in such a bad spot for a lot of the season. Johnny's like, Allie and Liv, I don't think they're coming after you. What do you mean? Johnny's the one person that's not going to just accept that information at face value, and he's going to go to Allie and Liv and give them a heads up. Like, are you guys going after Dela? And they're like, what? No. And he's like, well, because Dela kind of thinks you're coming after them, after them, and so this actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Allie and Liv actually are after Dela after hearing that Dela is suspicious of them, and Paris has successfully caused this civil war within the 7. And Kayla is now loyal to Paris. Some good job, a good job by Paris, although it was unintentional.
Yep, and I mean that leads perfectly into the next week, because that's that we know that Hamza had his whole thing about how he wanted to get Olivia out the next week, and a lot of that started from the work that Paris put in here.
Yes. So Andrew is evicted that week. Kayla is a vote to evict him. Heading into week 3, Hamza wins the HOH. Unfortunate for Dela, although you might say it ended up being fortunate because they really played their cards right and managed to flip this around. But initially, they are worried about being targeted. Derek comes up with the plan. Look, I got to bond more with Hamza. I've got to, approach him with this guy's thing. I think this can work. Meanwhile, Kayla is going to focus on Veronica, as we talked about, and try to get Veronica to influence Hamza, since they won the HOH together, to target Allie and Liv. That is not going to work. But Derek's plan is going to work, which is great for them. Hamza's initial plan was to put Kayla and Liv on the block and target Kayla if the veto was not used, and potentially use the veto to target Derek. But Derek successfully talks Hamza out of doing that, and instead Hamza's target lands on Jesse.
Yep, and that's where there was no shot that this week originally at first that Hamza was gonna try to take out anybody other than Dela. He want or I mean Dela, or he also saw Dela's friends in the background, that being Jesse. And remember this week, I mean for me, I had Jesse in my top spot of the rankings. We were all talking about how Jesse's in such a safe, insulated spot here, and then Hamza comes through and he's like, all right, well, I feel good about Derek. And then I know that Derek and Hamza went to Wendy's that week, and he came out of that feeling good, and he was like, all right, well, you know what, tell Kayla she's safe too. I'll work with you guys, you work with me, and we'll make something happen here. And like we just said, Kayla and Veronica have some bonding here, so it's just like it's crazy to me that they found their way out of it. But I mean, there's so many people in the house that if you can make the HOH feel good, then why does he have any reason to come after you? But it's not like they're going to get away completely unscathed here, because he is still going to go after one of their closest allies.
Yes, and that is going to really destroy their power base, because Jesse is in the center of almost everything that they are a part of. But all hope is not lost, and that's due to Kayla's work. But first, Paris is going to whisper some more poison in their ears and say, it's Ryan's fault. Ryan is pushing to get you guys up on the block, and this rivalry with Ryan will continue for quite a while, and Kayla's not going to handle the rivalry with Ryan particularly well, and that is going to be a factor in the jury vote.
No, yeah, absolutely, and we'll get way more into that later. But it definitely, the seeds start here, where Kayla realizes that, well, not realizes, but she sees that there's pretty much no potential for her and Ryan to work together moving forward. And I don't know if that's just because she feels that he doesn't like her, or if it is just because he doesn't like her, or because she feels like she just doesn't like him so much, and she really doesn't like him. So that does feel like what it is. Not a good way to start off any kind of potential with that situation.
Yes. So Hamza ends up nominating Jesse and Olivia, at which point Kayla is starting to realize, I think Hamza is still taking a shot here on some level. And Kayla does what Paris said she was going to do, if you listened yesterday, and does not even bother to even like stick her neck out a little bit for Jesse. She does end up campaigning and trying to get Jesse to stay, but not in a way that would expose her in any way. She is very much willing to just drop Jesse, let him go, and move forward with a new plan.
Yeah, well, not right away. I mean, obviously she comes around to that, but we talked about I mean a few updates ago about how there's been like 1 or 2 times this season where Derek and Kayla were just completely like, they did not see what was coming, and then eventually Kayla sees what was happening. It was on the week where Johnny saved himself and they were locked away in the HOH room for that entire day, and it happens here too. They go pretty much that entire day where Hot Tub Johnny's making his moves and getting into Veronica and Will's head, and he's talking about how when we realize that Jesse is on the block and the shot is there to take, and Johnny's like, all right, we're going to make this happen, and we're going to have this land. And Kayla and Derek don't see it at first, especially Derek. Derek goes almost up until the eviction saying, no, I still think we might have the votes, which is like one of his worst parts of the game. But Kayla, for a little while, still also thought that they had the votes, mostly because they thought that they had Will. They did not have any idea how much of a hold Johnny had on Will at this point. So they feel okay. But then, like you said, once Kayla does start to realize that the house has shifted, that people do want Jesse out, she does start to come into, she realizes, yes, actually, if the house is already going this way, I guess taking Jesse out isn't a bad idea, because then Derek is 100% mine. Derek isn't going to be splitting his loyalty between me and Jesse. He's all mine if Jesse goes, and there's potential here that I could make something happen with other people in the house. I guess we'll go into this now about how she goes to Allie and Olivia and Erica and says, all right, well, Olivia, you want to stay, and Jesse going is not the worst thing for my game. So why are people are telling me that you're coming after me? Why don't we just like squash that and make this happen?
Yeah, basically the timeline is that Hamza wins the veto. Johnny is going to help ensure that the veto is not used, as well as a well-timed door slam or a poorly timed door slam. And once the veto is not used, it becomes pretty clear that Hamza is targeting Jesse, but Kayla and Derek still think they have the votes at this point because they think that they have Will on their side. When Will finally tells Paris that he is going to be voting Jesse out. Paris runs to Dela. That is when Kayla finds out, oh, Will has betrayed us. We are in trouble. Time to go to plan B or something or other. While Hamza is working on like, oh yeah, we're going to save Liv. She's going to be so grateful. We're going to take out Jesse. Kayla actually goes and does the work. And she runs to Liv and Allie. And she's like, hey, look, let's try and work this out because and this is something that she'll try to do a few times again later on in the season. But like, I want to vote to keep you, Liv. I want to vote to save you. Hamza, he's sketchy. He's lying to both sides. He's saying he wants to keep Jesse, just so you know. If he's telling you that he wants to keep you, I don't know which one is the truth. But look, let's just take Hamza out of the equation. If I'm voting for you, you know you're going to be safe. So how do we make this work? Like, I've heard that you guys are coming after me. And they're like, well, we heard that you were coming after us. And they're like, well, what's going on here? Somebody's trying to break us up here. And again, this is when she is not going to throw Paris under the bus. Allie and Liv are going to suggest Maddie as the person that is potentially trying to cause the rift between them. And Kayla is going to go along with that. It's probably Maddie. We should get Maddie out. Maddie's the worst. And I think this is because because Kayla still feels like now that she has Paris clocked, she can use her. And I think that's sort of what her thought process was, given how she operates around Paris in the future.
Right. There's so many things that were going on here. I guess to start off with, Allie and Olivia, like we had said, they were in danger in these 2 weeks, and having somebody come to them and want to work with them, it was just like a breath of new life for them. Especially like Allie had just really felt defeated, and she really felt like there was just no hope left for the two of them. And then when Kayla comes to them, and it seems like a genuine offer of, okay, well, if we're not actually going after each other, let's work together. Allie and Olivia couldn't be more down for it. Also, there's the have not room, which really does a lot of relationship building for a lot of people this season, especially Derek and Kayla. The have nots this week.
Half the season.
Yeah, the have nots this week are Derek, Kayla, Erica, and Marin. This has pretty much nothing to do with Marin, but Kayla starts to talk to Erica a little bit more, and besides the fact that she's going to bed every night, having these conversations with Erica, not like game talks really, but just like talking and feeling good with each other and feeling connected. It seemed like Jesse wasn't really doing a whole lot of talking to Kayla. She was doing all of her talking. He was doing all of his talking to Derek. Kayla realized that he wasn't coming to her a whole lot, but meanwhile, she's feeling good with Erica in the have not room. She sees Allie and Liv as two people that she could easily bring in. And it's a lot of this, I think, had to do, Jesse going home ultimately had, I think, a lot to do with Kayla. Once she decides that she's off the Jesse train, there's no chance of it turning back on, because Jesse needs Kayla's vote. And without Kayla, no chance.
Yeah, and we won't go too much into it, but there is a chance that Jesse could have stayed if Kayla actually stayed on board to try and keep him. There were tides that were starting to turn, but the Fives company really put the nail in the coffin. So Kayla is going to do this. She's going to talk to Allie and Liv. She's going to continue to keep that relationship open. They're very excited about this. She's very excited about it. They eventually solidify this relationship and solidify an alliance that is going to prove very, very, very valuable to her and Derek moving forward. Allie and Liv, meanwhile, this is kind of starting to set up the next week. They are starting to really dislike Veronica, because they are seeing that Veronica is promising the world to Kayla, to other people, that she's going to vote to keep Jesse. Then she's promising the world to them that she's going to keep Liv. They are really done with Veronica, and they're going to start to throw her under the bus to Kayla and try to get Kayla to turn on Veronica. We know Kayla has a good relationship with Veronica, but Allie and Liv, they're going to be pretty successful at this. And by the end of the week, Kayla is going to start to talk to Liv about how Veronica has been very sketchy, and she definitely doesn't trust Veronica moving forward. And Kayla's going to work on Liv and try to get her a little more paranoid about Hamza, as I mentioned, which also could be a small seed that was planted for the future. So some little seeds planted with people that are going to be targeted pretty soon.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't do well in Big Brother without a little bit of luck on your side. And I think, having the people who ended up in the have-not room was something that just Kayla got lucky into having those people be in the have-not room at specific times. Coming up this week, we have the rogue vote, which, Veronica is going to cast a vote to keep Jesse in the house, just because that's what Veronica decided she was going to do. And now that the end of the week, they were already pushing this idea of maybe Veronica, isn't to be trusted, isn't somebody we can work with. And then Veronica just hands her this on a silver platter, and she votes this rogue vote. And Kayla, everybody in the house pretty much realized that it was Veronica, even though did she even end up admitting it? I don't even know. She never admitted it, right? Yeah. So, it's another thing that, just helped Kayla along. And what is she going to do? I can't knock her for having these things fall into her lap, but it definitely helped.
Yes. So basically, Kayla, after she makes this alliance with the women, she's going to tell Derek, you need to just let Jesse go. Mm-hmm. And Derek is going to reluctantly agree to that. They unfortunately for them, this is behind the scenes. They don't know this. It's going to take them a long time to realize this, but they have lost Johnny at this point. Mm-hmm. And this is when things are really going to start to go downhill for them, with Johnny working against them behind the scenes. And that's because, as we mentioned in the Derek podcast, when Jesse mentioned Johnny's name as a potential person to nominate instead of himself to quote unquote stack the veto, Derek was there. Derek did not say anything. Johnny was like, these guys don't have my best interests at heart. I need to make sure I target them. So that's why he goes after Jesse. Kayla will try to repair the bond with her and Johnny. Saying like, hey, because she finds out that Johnny is mad at Jesse, and that's why he's voting Jesse out. But she doesn't realize he's mad at her necessarily, and so she thinks that everything's fine when she says to Johnny, like, oh, it was Jesse. I don't know what Jesse said about you. I don't co-sign that. Don't worry about Jesse. This is unfortunately too little, too late. But Kayla doesn't realize it.
Yeah. And keep an eye as we get into these next few weeks, just on the people who there is still a lot of talk in the house besides, all of the work that Kayla and Derek have been putting in, which all, I give them, I commend them for. They're doing well, but there are still people in the house who are still looking at them like, all right, this is the threat is growing. We're seeing more from Kayla. We're seeing more from Derek. But I mean, if you look at the next few weeks, the rest of the players are going to get so frustrated because this is like the last time between like from now up until where Johnny wins his HOH, which is like 3 or 4 weeks later. Dela is like safe because of all the work that they put in here to get themselves in good with Erica, with Allie and Liv. The power stays within that group for so long, and the rest of the house, and the rest of the house is just going to grow so frustrated because they see that Dela is playing well and that they need to be dealt with eventually, and there's nothing that they can do about it because their allies and then eventually them just come into power every single week, back to back to back.
Yeah, basically they were in good with most people, and then their games blew up this week, and they pivoted and they hid in this group of Liv, Allie, and Erica, and luckily for them, that group just they held the power, they held the shields, and protected Dela for a little while. So Kayla at this point, now that she's found out that Will has betrayed them, she wants to target Will. She still wants to target Ryan as well. She wants to put both of them up on the block if she has the capability to. That is her game plan moving into the next week. They also come up with the idea to make an alliance with Hamza and Will and Veronica to keep themselves covered on that angle as well, because they're used to being covered by all sides. Remember, they were all good. They don't want to just rely on Olivia, Allie, and Erica. So they feel like Hamza, Veronica, Will, these are all comp beasts as well. They even talk about it like these are all the best competitors in the house. They feel like this is going to keep them safe. Almost everybody is going to consider this alliance to be completely fake, but they're all, except for Will, actually, but they're all on board with this Fives Company alliance. And So that's going to happen. And then also the Ding Dongs, Dela and Erica, that alliance, I don't know what to call them. I wish I had a good name for them. I don't remember if they ever came up with
they
a
had
name.
no names.
Yeah. They agree that Maddie, Ryan, and Veronica are people that they should be looking out for in the future. Ultimately, now Jesse gets evicted, and Kayla is a vote to evict him. And that leads us into week 4.
Yep, with the rogue vote that transitions us again perfectly. And the funny part about it was that Veronica, since she didn't claim the vote as hers, as we know, there were people that were looking at Kayla like maybe Kayla was the one who cast this vote, but ultimately, like, you know, it's like when you're playing Secret Hitler. It's like, you know, sometimes like somebody's reactions can just be so genuine, and even though it's like, you know, the game, whether it's that game or this game, it's like sometimes you just confuse yourself. But Kayla was very sincere, very genuine here, and like I had no reason to do that. It wasn't me. Meanwhile, Veronica's acting sketchy, so I don't think she was ever in any actual danger from this rogue vote.
Yes, Erica wins the HOH, and Kayla immediately agrees with Allie. It was Veronica. Just like you're talking about Secret Hitler when it's like, oh, no, you're lying. You're lying.
Yeah, like it's.
And so the three of them, Kayla, Allie, and Olivia, agree they would love to backdoor Veronica this week. So I know there's a lot of debates of people like, oh, Kayla was definitely a part of, backdooring Veronica. Maybe it was Kayla's move to backdoor Veronica. I mentioned this at the time as well, but going back and looking through it again, it really confirms to me, Allie and Liv were the people that started the train to target Veronica the previous week. When I mentioned it, they got Kayla to turn against Veronica. Veronica didn't help her own case. And then by the time that week 4 comes around, Kayla is on board with them to do their plan, which is what they wanted to do initially, which is to take out Veronica. It also helped that Kayla wanted to take a shot at Veronica because Veronica was very close to Will, and Will had just betrayed them. That is not to say that Kayla did not have a significant contribution to convincing Erica to backdoor Veronica, but I do refer to it as Allie and Liv's plan to evict Veronica for the most part, but Kayla was very involved as well. And they start it right here as soon as Erica wins the HOH. They talk about backdooring Veronica, but Kayla wants Will on the block as well. She's going to try and push that. And they pitch this idea to Erica, who says that she will think about it, but she is not going to put Will on the block.
Yeah, and this, like you were talking about the Allie and Liv stuff, one of the few times that the edit actually got it right for almost the entire season, like maybe the only time. I do remember that they gave Allie and Liv the credit for this, as they did deserve. But I think a lot of it, you know, going back to the Kayla and Ryan thing, Kayla just like really wants to hear everybody say that they're coming after Ryan. So to hear that Veronica is the target, she's fine with it, and she's not going to push too hard, especially if, you know, her and Derek are safe and she's in good with Erica. So it's like, there's no need to push too hard for Ryan, but like it's still in the back of her mind. Like she's just wanting to hear Ryan's name coming out of their mouth as the target. But she does do some pushing. I remember watching a little bit, reading some of the updates back. Erica's like, do I take this shot? Because Erica didn't know if she wanted to take such a big shot so early on. She had won 3 competitions up until this point because she won the veto this week as well. So you know, she won the HOH, won the veto, and it was her choice if she was going to take Maddie off the block to put Veronica up. And Kayla was giving her a lot of pushing. She was, you know, like the devil on her shoulder, saying like, you can do it, like we're supporting you, we have your back here. And I mean, you know, of course Allie and Liv are the ones who I guess founded this idea. Kayla did help push it forward.
Yes. So Erica lets Kayla know eventually that she's definitely putting Maddie and Marin on the block. Kayla says, you know, those are good choices. That's fine. But I do agree that we should probably do the Veronica backdoor. But you should also consider Will. You know, Will's somebody that we should consider. But if the noms stay the same, she would prefer for Maddie to leave. Maddie and Marin do go up on the block, and then we're gonna get some conversations between Paris and Kayla. And this is when their relationship is going to start to break down. At first, they are just BSing each other. And we've talked a lot about this on previous, season-long recaps, but it's particularly important for Kayla. Kayla does not buy what Paris is selling now. She knows that Paris is selling her, false information. She's talked to Allie and Liv. She knows that Paris is just trying to get them to be evicted. But Kayla is going to feed some BS back to Paris. She's going to tell Paris that Erica thinks she's workable, which I believe Erica did say about Paris, but not in the way that Kayla Erica meant it like we should work with Paris. Kayla meant it like she thinks she can manipulate you. And thinking about it, like this is sort of a turning point in Paris. She is going to be pretty anti-Erica for a long time. And this is definitely going to be one of the reasons why. Kayla is also going to pretend that Allie and Liv don't trust her and that they'll be coming after her. This is going to be a staple of her strategy for the next few weeks, to pretend that, oh, well, we're going to come after each other eventually. We still hate each other. They're really riding on that perception from the previous week for a long time.
A lot of the early game was Kayla and Paris, coming together with the real deal and all this stuff. But then once Jesse got evicted, though, there was at least like a solid 5 days where it just felt like they weren't talking to each other. Kayla was off, making her new alliance with her new friends, Allie, Liv, and Erica, and Paris was still, putting in some work with Maddie and Will. So it's like the two of them just kind of split here. But they weren't going to go, forever without reconnecting at some point, even though it did seem like this was like a very fake conversation on both ends. But they came out of it. I felt like Kayla still didn't trust Paris 100%, but she still felt like Paris was giving her information that was important to keep around. So even though Paris wasn't like somebody she is going to, like right now, Kayla's fully on board with the Allie, Liv, Derek, and Erica thing. But she has no interest right now in seeing Paris leave yet, because like I just said, she's getting a lot of information from her.
Yes, they're still good at this point. It's going to be later toward the end of the week that things start to deteriorate. But in the meantime, Erica wins the veto, and so again, this is the chain of events that go from Erica winning the veto, not being sure if she's willing to make the move to backdoor Erica. First, Allie is going to talk to her. She is going to push for the Veronica backdoor. Erica is going to be very hesitant about it. Olivia will come into the HOH room and say to Erica, hey, I was just talking to Veronica and she said Erica isn't dumb enough to backdoor me. And at that point, Erica goes, oh, yes, I am. And
I'll show you.
Yes, that is the turning point. At that point, she's like, oh, man, I can't. The cockiness there. I think we have to do this. Then Kayla comes in and they talk about like, so this is happening. And Erica's like, yeah, this is happening. And they get excited about it and they're celebrating. That is the progression of events. And the backdoor Veronica plan is in effect.
Yeah, well, Erica was in a really good spot this time. Besides the fact that she was HOH and then, going to be HOH again. And she had this core alliance that she was working with. She had Will that she felt, really good with. She had Johnny, obviously. The two of them were tight for pretty much the entire game, even though it started to maybe just slip a little bit this week. And we'll get more into that, I think, with like next week. But Johnny, he's such a big, important player in the season too. So it is, I think, important to keep track of him, even though we're talking about Kayla here. But
we'll
Johnny,
keep track.
Oh yeah. Johnny, it starts with this week, I think more so into next week, because like I said, the frustration of Dela being in such a safe spot. Johnny, I think, starts to see that Kayla is maybe taking his spot in this group. Like Johnny still feels good with Allie, Liv, and Erica. That's his core alliance, I think, at the end of the day, even though he still has, a bunch of other ties. He's getting so tight with Will now, but Derek and Kayla are like slipping in. And meanwhile, Johnny's like, wait. If we're going to bring anybody in, can we bring in like Will and Maddie maybe? But everyone else is like, well, we feel, Dela's fine right now. We don't need to worry about them yet. And Johnny's like, well, are we sure? Like, really?
Yes. We'll talk about that. Yeah. Okay. So just briefly before we get into the rest of Johnny, Kayla and Paris are going to have another conversation that's going to turn out to be important. Paris is going to, it's just another BS each other conversation, but Paris is going to reveal a bit too much information now that, sorry, we also missed, Veronica does get put up on the block.
There's so many notes.
Yeah. So Veronica gets backdoored. The plan is in effect. It happens. Then Paris is going to talk to Kayla about like, what should I do? I feel like I want to keep Veronica in the house to take a shot at the other side. Paris does not know just how integrated Kayla is with that side at the moment. She gives Kayla way too much information in this conversation. Dela is still after Ryan at this point, and now, unbeknownst to Kayla, throughout this entire week, as you mentioned, Matt, that Johnny is going to be amassing a force, an army to go after Dela. He knows that Dela is in tight with Ali, Liv, and Erica, so he's going around to basically everyone else in the house and saying, we're all coming after Dela, right? And he's gathering his forces, and Kayla is not going to know that this is happening until she sees some of the results of this. She sees the women in her alliance, Ali, Liv, and Erica, pull Paris into a room. And this is what you were talking about, where Johnny was trying to pull Paris and Will into the alliance with Ali, Liv, and Erica to have a suitable replacement for Dela, when hopefully, according what Johnny wants to have happen is anybody but Ali, Liv, or Erica win an HOH, and then Dela will be targeted. It'll be fine, and everything will work out perfectly. I'll never be blamed for it. But little does he know that nobody is capable of winning competitions other than Dela, Ali, Liv, or Erica.
And remember, Hamza's still in the house. I feel like we're not even right. Hamza's still there. And Hamza's also somebody who's talked about that he would take the shot at Dela. And it's funny because Johnny and Hamza really don't have a connection. He tried to convince himself that he could do something with Hamza, and just every step of the way he would step away from the conversations and feel like, nah, I still don't think that I can make that happen. So I think he was hoping that Hamza would win again, because Hamza seemed like a perfectly capable person of winning the next competition, and he said he would take the shot. So he just needs the troop to come together to say, yes, we'll take out Dela.
Yeah, and Hamza was an extension of Will, but Hamza was so blatantly anti-Dela that I think Johnny was like, I don't want to get too attached there. I don't want to be associated with Hamza. That would become a really big threat if I did that. But
I think he just thought that Hamza was just the most likely person to win the next HOH. So he just figured, all right, well, as long as he wins and then he puts them up, I just need to make sure that they're ready to turn on them, or that they're ready to put the votes on them if need be.
Yeah, so really the deck is stacked against Dela right now, despite the fact that they are sitting pretty with their allies winning the HOH. But so Kayla is going to catch the women in her alliance pulling Paris into a room. That is going to make her skeptical, and she is going to do some good work to try and prevent Johnny from getting his way too easily, even though she doesn't know this is Johnny's work yet. So she is going to run into the room after Paris leaves, and she's going to talk to Olivia, like trying to counteract anything that might be happening, because she knows Paris is a liar. She knows she thinks this is all Paris right now. So she's just trying to counteract Paris, and she doesn't want Paris to take her spot in this alliance. So she's going to tell Liv, hey, Paris is talking about, like, you might be jealous of her. She's been talking about targeting you. She was just telling me that she might want to keep Veronica in this house so that she can come after you guys. And so Liv is going to be very nervous about this, because they just reveal a lot of information to Paris. She's going to run back to Ali and Erica, and they're going to kind of freak out. They're going to have a little freak out. But for the most part, they're like, it's fine. Kayla's just trying to prevent us from aligning with Paris. They see through it to some extent. Kayla's playing both sides. It's fine. I think we're fine. I think we can trust Paris. However, I do think that the sort of like the memory of trusting Paris briefly and then freaking out, oh my God, is Paris betraying us? That sticks in Ali and Liv's heads. And as we talked about, Ali and Liv are sort of the rivals of Paris in terms of they are going to be trying to get Paris out almost every single week from this point forward. And I do think that Kayla doing this, putting the doubt in their head, definitely is going to have something to do with that.
This is where Kayla shines. Just not the only spot. This is just like a part of the game that Kayla shines in, just by identifying something that, I mean, she doesn't always see it right away. So that's also the problem. But once she sees that there is something that she needs to take care of, this is where she has an edge over Derek, because she takes action and makes sure that she's still in a good spot, that nothing has changed. Meanwhile, Derek is probably still off sleeping and not realizing that things are changing underneath his nose. But he, like you said, Kayla doesn't even give them a chance to even like talk over what might have been said in that room. She jumps in and she ensures that things are still steady for her. and Derek.
Yes. So Veronica, in a last ditch effort, realizing that Kayla has turned on her, is going to reveal to everyone that she is a rugby player, which is actually going to do a little bit of damage to Kayla's social game, but not nearly enough. Veronica is still evicted from the house
after her last minute campaigning. But Five's company. Remember, we made that. We're all supposed to work together. Didn't go anywhere.
No, did not go anywhere. And then we head into the double eviction, where Olivia will win the HOH, nominate Ryan and Marin. Ryan will win the veto, and Hamza will end up going home. We know Johnny had a lot to do with protecting Maddie here. Ultimately, despite the fact that Kayla votes for Hamza, and this is a huge win for Kayla in terms of taking Hamza out of the game, one of the few people that could have gone after her. I think ultimately we have to look back at this and say it was a mistake for Johnny to try and protect Maddie and ultimately get Hamza out of the house. He thinks that Maddie is a good competitor and that she can win one of these HOHs and target Dela. And you can't fault him for thinking that. Maddie is much more easily controlled than Hamza is. And if Maddie is capable of winning a competition to take out Dela, that's great for him. But ultimately, we find out that this trio just can't win a competition. So in hindsight, I think this turns out to be one of the places where it's an unfortunate move here for Johnny.
For Johnny, yes. For Kayla and Derek, it could not have gone any better. There's there's not a single scenario where they come out of this in a better spot. They had Ryan on the block, and if Ryan had gone here, which I think he was probably going to, if he stayed on the block with Marin, that is somebody that's probably coming after Dela. But it's just Ryan is nowhere near. He's just not Hamza. Hamza had a better ability to win comps going forward. Hamza, even though he was as messy as he was, he could have pulled in the Wills or anybody and tried to get some kind of Dela, anti-Dela resistance going. If he had won HOH and he had Dela on the block, he could have made something happen. Even whatever. So like I said, it could not have been a better result for them out of this double eviction.
Yes. And, there's been talk like how much influence did Kayla have in terms of taking Hamza out? We obviously don't know exactly how much. We didn't have the feeds on during the double eviction. The only thing I could trace any Kayla involvement back to is during week 3 when she was telling Olivia that, Hamza, he's lying to people. He's putting your life in danger. So she had a little bit of influence there, but for the most part, I think there wasn't a whole lot of Kayla influence other than just in general. Hamza's a big target. He's got to go.
Yeah, and this was definitely a move that benefited Olivia the most, because just after Olivia had found out that Hamza wanted her possibly gone, when she was up against Jesse, and he was never going to work with Olivia either. So this was an Olivia idea that she put into practice with Ali. Was also encouraging it, but I think it just, again, a situation that lucked into Kayla's benefit, just that this guy was coming after them and he's gone now.
Yeah, and Kayla's going to have a much better play later on during the Canada save, where she definitely got some people to do some things. We'll talk about it. So we head into week 5, where Erica wins the HOH once again.
Guess who's safe yet again?
Yes, really, again, because Johnny had amassed this huge army to come after Dela, and they just can't take it home. So once again, Dela is safe. Paris at this point is pissed at Kayla because she's fuming. She's finally realized, like, Kayla spilled a bunch of information on me. Kayla is dead to her. We talked about that. So that relationship is very rocky from this point forward. Kayla at this point still wants to work with Johnny. She does not know that he is the thorn in her side. She's like, man, everything hurts, and I don't know why. why. It's because of Ryan. Screw Ryan. It's because of Will. Screw Will. Meanwhile, Johnny is behind her with a knife in her back. She does feel like she is starting to catch on to how influential Johnny is, but that's why one of the reasons why she wants to work with him. She wants to keep him loyal. She wants Maddie out of the house. She knew Johnny was trying to protect Maddie, so she kind of wants Maddie out of the house. So Johnny will maybe try to protect her instead. But over the course of this week, she's going to finally start to catch on, and we'll talk about that as it goes on. So Erica is going to let Kayla know that Paris is mad at her and tried to get Erica to target the showmance. So now Kayla is aware that Paris is fully turned on her. Kayla is going to try and pitch for Ryan to leave. But again, it'll also maybe be cool if Will left. But Erica's still not going to bite on that one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny this week because I just feel like Erica, made this alliance with Dela, and I think she just expected that maybe like next week, like what if one of them win, then they'll keep me safe. I don't think she anticipated that she was going to be the one that had to keep them safe for like another week, like another, So people are coming up to her, and there are still like Johnny's going to Erica and saying like, "Do you have something with Dela? Like I don't understand. Like we're still like it's still you and me. It's just like I said before, there's so much people want to see somebody take a shot at Dela, but it's not going to be Erica again. And I mean, Erica kind of has to talk herself into convincing her. She has to convince herself that this is still a good idea to keep Dela around. She's telling a few people, later on that she's like, they're still a big shield in front of me. And now that I just want another comp, I need to keep them around. But again, the frustration level is rising for anybody that's not Dela right now.
Yes. So Ryan and Marin end up going on the block with Ryan as the target. Kayla is fine with this. She wants Ryan gone for sure. She's going to check in with Allie and Liv to make sure they're on the same page to evict Ryan. Meanwhile, she's also going to be bonding with Marin. But unfortunately for her, Johnny is going to talk. Liv is going to go to Johnny and be like, okay, so we're evicting Ryan, right? Like, here's the reasons why we're evicting Ryan. And Johnny's going to be like, yeah, totally. But hold on. Let's think about this. He's going to flip Liv around. Liv is going to be on board to keep Ryan in the house. She's going to bring that back to Kayla, who's like, no. We need to get rid of Ryan. But she is not going to be able to succeed in convincing Olivia to not evict Marin. And Johnny is going to just continue to work the house to make sure that Marin leaves this week, as well as continue to round up troops to make sure that everyone is targeting Dela. And that's really going to be the basic story of the week.
Yeah, I'm so sad that we don't have the opportunity to do one of these about Johnny. Just because every time that we get up to something that he did I'm like, I want to talk about that because it was so good, and it's like Johnny did the most he possibly could at every step of the way with having like almost no power because he didn't, he wasn't going to get Erica to nominate Dela this week, but he still was able to make things happen. Like this is the week where Ryan is safe and Marin goes home because of Johnny, because Johnny convinces everybody that Marin's the bigger threat. So it's frustrating that we can't talk about Johnny as much, but Kayla isn't having a great week. She's still safe, but I don't know if, I don't think you said this yet, but she ends up on the wrong side of the vote here. This isn't the best outcome for her, especially that her, Derek and Allie stayed tight to what they wanted to do, and they didn't go with the house. So
yeah, this is, Johnny has been working so hard for so long to make sure that everyone is going to be targeting Dela. This is, they've been holding on to their relationship with Allie, Liv, and Erica. And this is when it starts to crumble. This is when this lifeboat is out of air, and they're about to sink. And it's not gonna look good for Dela moving forward unless they can win in HOH, which we'll talk about.
Well, I don't think they'll have a problem with that.
Yeah. So Johnny is going to be doing all this work behind the scenes. Allie and Kayla is going to be unaware of it for a while. Allie is eventually going to give Kayla the heads up. Hey, look, it looks like Ryan is going to stay, actually. And Kayla is pissed because she's realizing I'm screwed. If Ryan is staying, that means people want Ryan to stay to target me. There's no other reason. She makes another attempt to swing votes over to save Marin with Allie, but again, and it starts to work a little bit. They get a couple of votes. They get Liv, but Johnny works them over again, flips them back over. Johnny makes sure that everything is all good. It very impressive work from Johnny to influence Liv over even Allie, and makes sure that Ryan stays in the house. However, after a couple more days of this unsuccessful campaigning, Kayla is at a point where she's playing out of spite now. She's like, screw it. I'm not even gonna go after Ryan next week if I win the HOH. I'm gonna go after Will. I'm gonna go after the people that are keeping him in this house because I'm very frustrated. Now she's starting to finally feel like Johnny wants Marin to go, and I don't know why, but he is one of my major roadblocks in keeping Ryan in this house, or keeping Marin in this house, and therefore he must be extremely influential. Therefore, my only path to get Will out of this house is to put him up next to Johnny. So this is when Johnny starts to pop up on her radar a little bit, but she's still not targeting him because she doesn't realize that despite his influence, he is also somebody that's coming after her, which I didn't say correctly, but hopefully you get the point.
And I mean, we're talking about the highs and lows of Kayla's game. So what I think we do, I personally saw the second half of this week as a bit of a low for her, not just because of the fact that she was on the wrong side of the vote, but she had been in so good with Allie, Liv, and Erica. Erica's not really feeling as great with her at the end of this week as she once was. If you remember, this is when we started to hear about her thinking that Kayla was queer baiting her. That's the expression she used, and she was saying that Kayla's just being extra flirty with me, and she's just like twirling her hair and just prancing around the HOH room trying to make me feel something towards her or something like that. And I mean, Erica truly felt this, whether or not it was actually happening. This is what Erica felt from Kayla going towards the end of the second week, that she had been in power and she had been keeping Derek and Kayla safe. And she's like, well, am I keeping Kayla safe because it's like it makes sense, or is she just like trying to like charm me with whatever she's got? I don't know. So that's it didn't like cause, it wasn't enough for Erica to be like, I'm not working with Kayla, like I don't want to work with her or anything like that. But it was starting to alarm her a little bit that she had been doing Kayla's bidding a little bit, or she had been keeping them safe when maybe she shouldn't have been. Erica was questioning it.
Yeah, Johnny's war of attrition is paying off, and by the end of this week, he is able to evict Marin and keep Ryan in the house, and every single person is after Dayla for the most part, other than Allie and Liv, who are the only people that Dayla have left in the house at all. And so they are in deep trouble heading into week 6 after Marin is evicted. Kayla is going to end up on the wrong side of this vote, and she's going to vote for Ryan. She knew, I believe, that she wouldn't have the votes, but she voted that way anyway. But even despite this, we haven't mentioned it in a little while, but Kayla's jury management certainly is leaving a lot to be desired throughout the season. We'll talk more about it once we get to the jury. But you'd think that for Kayla, who spent a lot of time bonding with Marin, a lot of time, focusing on Marin in the house, even votes for Marin to stay, when Marin leaves the house, he still doesn't feel great about Kayla, and he says, I would vote for Johnny, the person who campaigned to get him out of the house. Johnny is the person that he would have voted for if this had been a larger jury. And Kayla was not even really on the radar in terms of somebody that he felt good about voting for. So just keep that note as well. Kayla and her jury management just leaves something to be desired here.
Yep. And I mean, it's going to keep on getting a little worse in the coming week or two.
Yes. So, and this is going to also be, she's so angry with Ryan. This is going to be the start of just how much she hates Ryan, and how that could end up being, her downfall in the game. So we head into week 6. Everyone is targeting Dayla. They need to pull out a win if they want to survive, and Kayla does pull out a win, a must-win situation, and it's this could change everything, because all of the Johnny stuff is finally going to get revealed. Like, everybody that's been targeting him for so long, there's so much information for them to learn. They've really gotten behind the 8 ball in terms of all of that. So Kayla pulling out this win was huge for them.
Yeah, they needed this win like never before, really. And again, the rest of the house, Johnny, Will, Paris, Maddie, they're just like, oh my God, like these people, like they just can't. This is the third week in a row. They just kind of can't be stopped. So when you're looking at it from an outside perspective, you're just like, all right, so she's obviously going to go after this week the people who voted to keep Ryan in the house. But she, remember, like you just said before, she did say, I'm not going to put Ryan up this week. I'm not going to target Ryan, because if they wanted to keep him in the house, then I'm going to keep him in the house, and we'll right, like. She had no plans of targeting him at first.
Yes.
And I think she originally said that she was going to nominate Will and Johnny, and then she said Maddie and Will. So Ryan wasn't in the conversation.
Yes, the initial plan was, before she talked to anybody, was the same plan she had the previous week, which was she wants to target Will. And in order to get Will out of the house, she's going to put him up next to Johnny. And honestly, that was probably a better plan than the one she ended up with. It was a far better plan than the one she ended up with, at the very least. So then she goes and she also wants to make deals with everyone she's not putting up. So she's going to talk to Ryan, and this is going to set her on the quest to find out who is behind the plan to keep Ryan in the house to target me. And we went over that in detail on the live feed updates during the season. It's a very complicated situation with lots of moving parts. So I will try to briefly run through a summary of it here. She talks to Ryan. Ryan tells her, I was told to target you last week. Maddie told me to do that. If I said that to people, then they would keep me in the game. Maddie told me to tell Johnny first. I told Johnny. Johnny was happy about it. I then told Paris. I then told Will. Erica had nothing to do with it. This is going to be concerning to Kayla, who thought that Will was more of the person that was against her. Now she's concerned about Johnny, because if Johnny is against her, she knows how influential he is. That's going to be very dangerous for her. So she's going to talk to the rest of them and get them to also try to admit what happened. She talks to Maddie. She talks to Johnny. They all deny it to some extent, but then she talks to Paris, who says, yes, that's what happened. Johnny and Maddie, they were the ringleaders, and they wanted to come after you. I never did. I'm still loyal to you guys 100%. Don't put me up, please, 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 please. And so at this point, Kayla says, okay, now the plan is we nominate Will and Maddie, the two people that were in this conspiracy, and we backdoor Johnny to take out our biggest threat in the game. And this is an okay plan as well. And Allie is going to also be targeting Johnny at this point, because she is scared of Johnny's influence, and she wants to protect Dayla. Again, Dayla's relationship with Allie and Liv going to prove to be invaluable in certain parts of the game. She wants she wants Kayla to put up Paris. Kayla does not want to put up Paris, but she does want to backdoor Johnny at this point. However, as we've talked about before, Maddie cries to Paris. Paris is going to change her mind. Paris is going to go back to Kayla and say, actually, it wasn't Maddie and Johnny. It was Ryan. Ryan is lying to you. You're getting played by Ryan. And Kayla is going to believe this. This is another low point here for Kayla. Yes. Really just gets completely snowed by Paris and makes a huge, huge error and targets Ryan this week, and really would have been in a lot of trouble if this plan had gone through.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She had this. We've been talking about it. All of this built up animosity or hatred she had towards Ryan for whatever reason. The second that Paris comes to her and throws out the idea that Ryan was the one that was masterminding all of this stuff and he's playing you, and Kayla just has this thought for a half a second where she's like, wait, I cannot let Ryan play me. There's no chance that I'm gonna let, like this guy's not gonna get one over on me. I know I said I wasn't gonna put him up, but he still is coming after me, and this makes sense that he would be lying because everybody else is obviously coming in there, and he threw them under the bus, and they're gonna throw him right under the bus too, and say, no, Ryan is making all this stuff up. He's still gonna come after you no matter what. So Ryan doesn't do himself any favors by kind of like just assuming that he's good and also throwing all of his allies under the the bus so that none of them care enough about him to, care at all. But this, yeah, exactly. This is really not good for Kayla. We'll talk about it, but she really gets saved by her good friend Canada.
Yes. And one of the reasons Ryan is going to be really pissed at Kayla is that she essentially was like, look, we're good. Like, after Ryan tells her the entire truth, he is like, I'm spilling my guts here. I'm turning my back on all of my allies. I'm giving you everything. Mm-hmm. And she's like, thank you. I'm going to keep you safe because of this. And then at the last second, she turns around and blindsides him to put him on the block. And he's like, what are you doing, kid? Like, I told you the truth. And she says, I don't believe you. I believe Paris. And he's just like, well, she doesn't say I believe Paris because you know that, but she's essentially like, I don't believe you. And Ryan's just going to be like, well, now I'm screwed. Like, you just screwed me for no reason. And this is a dumb move. And that's, going to be part of the edit that saves Ryan, and all of that. But that's definitely going to be one of the main causes of Ryan just like really. This is when, Ryan never loved Kayla, but this is the moment when he was like, screw you, Kayla. I gave you my heart. And I mean, it's not even just Ryan that I felt like, or not Ryan, Paris that I felt like got one over on Kayla here. It felt like Johnny did too, because Johnny was supposed to be one of the nominees. Kayla was saying that she was going to put up Will and Johnny. And then after she talks to Johnny, and, remember she was playing this week, like really like, I don't know what she was doing. She was like holding everybody's life in front of them by like a string. She made people feel very uncomfortable when she interrogated them. And you might say it worked, but the result was terrible too. So like she spent a lot of social capital and ended up with a bad plan.
I think it worked a little bit on Maddie just because of who Maddie is and how terrified Maddie was. So, she tells Maddie at one point, like, I think I might have to put you up. And then eventually, when she doesn't, Maddie comes like running back to her the same way that Maddie went running to Erica. And she's like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry that I freaked out like that. And I think that Maddie does feel a little bit like almost so afraid that they almost put her up that she does feel like not loyal, but like she feels better with them because they didn't actually go through with it. I don't know what Maddie was thinking, but yeah, again, back to Johnny and Kayla, it did feel like Johnny should never have gotten away with this, should never have been able to have like this conversation between two people that are just so like fake to each other. And Kayla just kept telling Johnny, I feel like you don't give me anything. And Johnny's like, well, I'm a private person. I don't really tell a lot of people what I'm thinking. I just kind of bounce ideas and whatever. And it's like, in what world did Kayla think that was an okay pitch from him? I don't know, maybe because she still felt like Johnny was in good with Erica, so like he wasn't going to come after her when he obviously was going to, but we know that. I guess she didn't know that. So I don't know. It's really, again, not a great look for Kayla. And if Ryan did end up going home, I'm sorry, if Johnny did end up going home here, none of the next few weeks where she has all this trouble with Johnny even happens. And I mean, it's hard to, I guess it's hard to say one way or another, because look where she is right now. She's in the final three, but it's still like, I don't know.
Yeah, just because you're in the final three doesn't mean
it's just like
mistakes.
all of it. It's so many of the moves this season in particular. It's like you want to be results oriented, but that you don't want to be results oriented. It's like, did Paris make the right move in keeping Kayla? Well, she's in the final three with them, but it's also like maybe she would have had a lot of these. Like just particularly this season, I feel like I've had a harder time like debating whether or not some things would have worked out for certain players and all that.
I mean, I think we can pretty definitively say this was a huge error, and getting Johnny out here would have been a huge benefit to her game, even more of a benefit than Erica ultimately was. But obviously that wouldn't have happened regardless. But it should have been the goal.
Yeah.
So at this point, Derek is still saying like, okay, we'll put Ryan on the block. Ryan will be the target, but we should still consider backdooring Johnny. But Kayla says no. I think that Johnny will be grateful that we saved him. He will feel indebted to us. She will start to come around, especially once Allie and Liv push more that like maybe we should start maybe thinking about targeting Johnny. But before that can ever really take root, Johnny ends up winning the veto. So with Johnny safe, Johnny's going to start to consider using the veto on Will. And at this point, Allie and Liv, or more Allie now, Allie is going to start really pushing. And this is a huge, huge error by Allie and Liv. When we'll talk about that when it comes to the end of the week. But they start really just throwing Johnny and Erica under the bus. They say that Johnny is convincing Erica to target Dayla, and so that Erica is a danger to them too. And I cannot for the life of me understand why Allie and Liv, more Allie, did this. They are cannibalizing their own alliance and letting the trio just like sit there and live. The trio who is not aligned with them at all, who they will eventually be the cause of their demise. It was not a good move, not a good move. But I think you have to credit Kayla for the move, because in particular, one of the reasons why Allie was doing this is because Johnny was talking to Allie incessantly about targeting Dayla, and Allie was like, no, I want to protect Dayla. I don't want to take Kayla out of this game. And because of that, screw you. I'm going to go to them and I'm going to tell them that you're saying this. I'm going to try to get you targeted. And that's a testament to the relationship that Kayla had with Allie, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is, it's going to be a long string from here on of just Allie kind of like shooting herself in the foot and doing things that are against her own best interests. But it's also like a little understandable that she just sees these two strong players in Erica and Johnny. And she's like, well, they're not in power right now. And so many people, when they're playing Big Brother, just feel like you have the shot right now because you're in power, and you're never, you might never get the shot again. So take it now. So I feel like that, the good players are the ones who don't fall into that trap. The people who get out, not people in their alliance, basically. And Allie was trying to possibly get one of those two, whether they were going to go up on the block. They couldn't because Johnny just won the veto. But just she was shifting Kayla's like focus to say, like, listen, like these two are going to come after you, come after me eventually. And it's I don't know. And then like this whole, I guess we'll get into the end of the week.
We'll cap it off whenever the Canada save happens. Yeah. But before, there are a few more things to talk about before the Canada save. Johnny ultimately, so Johnny is considering using the veto on Will. And so if that happens, it's gotten to a point where Kayla is willing to backdoor Erica if he does it. And we've talked about it before. If he does make that mistake, that ends up working out for him because Erica probably gets saved. But ultimately, he goes to Kayla, and this is Kayla's out, right? This is Kayla's way of correcting the mistakes that she made by targeting Ryan in the first place. All she has to do is convince Johnny to use the veto, which should be pretty easy because Johnny really wants to use it. He's just looking for confirmation from Kayla. Like, if I use this, who are you going to put up? Like, you put up someone like that doesn't matter. Like you're not going to screw me over, right? And Kayla's like, I don't know. She does the thing where she makes Johnny feel uncomfortable. She knew that the plan was to backdoor Erica, and she knew that she would be getting one over on him, but she didn't follow through. I think she still just really wanted Ryan out. And she was like, if Johnny does this to screw me over, then I'll screw him over back and I'll nominate Erica. But she never really fully committed to the plan. It wasn't like a William trying to convince Kevin to use the veto situation. It was more of a just like, if you do this, but I'm not going to convince you to do this. And in fact, I'm going to try and actually dissuade you from doing this because I'd prefer to see Ryan go.
And was it now or was it before nominations? I think it was after Johnny won the veto when Kayla was like messing with him, or not messing with him, but like messing with his life, just like telling Allie, is that what you were going to get to?
Yes.
I didn't remember if we had passed it or not.
Yeah, this is the conversation. Johnny is asking her about
the veto.
This is making her mad. She's just mad at Johnny, all the things Allie's been saying about him. And so they had come up with a plan to test Johnny. She says, well, what if I put up Allie? And Johnny passes the test. He doesn't fall for the trap.
Supposedly passes the test.
Yeah.
From our perspective.
Kayla does not accept that. Kayla's going to go to Allie and say, hey, Johnny threw you under the bus. He suggested you as a replacement nominee. He hates you. He wants you gone. It's going to make Allie cry. She's primed to believe this. And Kayla's going to go one step further. She's going to go to Paris and say, hey, Paris, I just talked to Johnny. She's like riding on a high of this lie. I just talked to Johnny. Johnny threw you under the bus. He wants you and Maddie on the block. And Paris is not going to fall for it nearly as much as Allie does. But Kayla, to her credit, never really gets caught in this lie, even though it never really goes anywhere. And by the time that next week comes around, Allie is back on Johnny's side.
I was gonna say, well, maybe if they ever were not in power, then maybe it would come back around to bite her. But who's the next HOH? It's right, it's Derek. So they really just never had an opportunity for this to blow up in her face. But it was so messy, and so I felt so unnecessary. Just like it was just like, what is this for? What is the point of this? Just to further make like Allie already came to you saying she's not feeling good with Johnny and Erica, and I don't know, she's just making it worse. I mean, it wasn't necessary, but again, Kayla and Derek just having this ability to win comps really helped them out. So yeah. To say the least.
So Johnny eventually does not use the veto, and once again is going to round up the troops, get everyone ready. Here we go. Erica's on board. Everyone's on board. Even Allie and Olivia are a little bit on board at this point. They're starting to turn. Olivia especially is starting to turn on Dayla. Everyone's looking at Dayla. We got to start targeting them. Johnny has everyone prepared for it. And that's what's going to head into the eviction. But before that, Kayla and Derek are going to have a romantic bath. And Kayla is going to feel very wooed. She's going to feel very good about it. Maybe. She said, yeah. I mean, she says she loved this bath. Even though from our perspective, it maybe didn't seem like.
So yeah, like Derek, we did so much to get to this point, and we're doing so well, and I'm so happy to be playing this game with you, and toast to that.
It's so weird because I watched them in this bath and they were talking about that, and it just felt like this feels like the montage that plays at the end of the season. Yeah, and it's like it's weird that they're like gonna go home next week because that's the most likely outcome. So. But in my head I was like, it's almost like the edgic in my brain is screaming that they're not going to go home this week, even though they should, because that's the most likely outcome. Just because this feels so like end game material, and then lo and behold,
Big Brother has no edgic. It's they can try, but there's nothing they can do about it.
The real life has edgic. Real life has edgic.
Yeah.
Okay, so
for us crazy people,
they go into the eviction, and Canada, in an attempt to screw Kayla over. This wasn't even a situation where it's like, oh, Kayla, she played the audience right. No, she played the audience wrong. They hated her. They wanted to screw up her plans. And in that attempt, they give her a huge opportunity. And I say opportunity because this was not a given. Yeah. And Kayla did a lot of good work to make this happen, but she made a huge mistake in the case that this was possible in the first place. But so this was an opportunity. It is definitely a detriment to her game the entire week. The fact that she relied on this, definitely a mistake. But I say an opportunity because this is still a very difficult thing to pull off in the sense that it was a huge error by Allie and Olivia. So Canada saves Ryan, and Kayla wants to put up Erica in Ryan's place to evict Erica. She goes to Allie and Liv. At this point, Allie and Liv have backed off. They don't even want Erica or Johnny gone at this point. They kind of want Dayla gone a little bit. But Kayla is able to strong arm them in this spot and say, if I put her up, are you going to vote her out? And they're like, well, I don't know if we should. And obviously we don't have the feeds from this spot, so we don't know exactly what happened here. But Kayla manages to convince them in a situation where they absolutely should not have done this. Hands down, no question about it. You can say that maybe pinning Dayla against Erica and Johnny was good because it would have headed into the following weeks. But eliminating Kayla needed their votes to take Erica out of the game, and they bought it. They allowed themselves to be strong-armed, and that's why this was an opportunity that Kayla turned into a great play, but she relied on twists to do it, and it came from a huge mistake. So ultimately, I'd still say this week is a huge error from her, but there was some great play to save her from that error.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at her other options, in that week. She obviously couldn't put Johnny up. Johnny had won the veto, and it was like Erica or like Maddie. And I think she's looking at it like she still feels like she has maybe some control over Maddie because Matt, like I said, she scared Maddie so much, and Maddie's also probably seen as a weaker player. So is Will. So it's like when you look at the options that she had, it made the most sense for her to go Erica. And this is where we do give her credit because she managed to get the votes on her side by scaring Liv and Allie a little bit and saying, like it's either her or one of you guys going up to make sure that Will goes home or whatever. So yeah, she definitely gets points for this week. Well, just for making that happen, not for the rest of it, because obviously, like you just said, she it very well could have destroyed her game if she not destroyed, I don't know, but it wasn't a good move for the alternative. But yeah, she gets bailed out here, and then what comes next? Another HOH.
Yeah, and even though she manages to pull out a save here, it's still everyone versus Dela in this HOH competition, and Kayla can't even play. This is a very must-win for Derek. If Derek does not win this HOH, I think basically anybody in this house puts them both up on the block, and one of them probably goes home.
Even Allie and Liv?
I think, yeah, at this point, especially after having just lost Erica, Allie and Liv no longer want Johnny gone, and they'll talk about that as soon as Derek wins the HOH. So I'm pretty convinced this is a absolutely must-win HOH for Derek, but he manages to do it in a tiebreaker. But he manages to do it, and this is definitely you can attribute the strength of Derek's competition ability here, and we have in Derek's podcast. But this was like a 3 or 4 person tiebreaker. There's a lot of luck involved here.
Yeah. Again, the luck. It's not the reason that they're here, but it helped a lot.
Yes. So Johnny is the very clear target here at this point. They got into a fight during the eviction the previous night. This is a much more straightforward week here, or so you might think. And here's the thing: Dela thought it was a straightforward week, and I have not a lot of notes here for Kayla on week 7, despite this being the craziest week of the house, because Kayla just goes to sleep this week. Yeah. And because she thinks it's going to be straightforward, she thinks she can just take Johnny out. She still, after all this time, underestimates Johnny, and that's going to really come back to bite her, or it could have come back to bite her. So Allie and Liv are going to try and get them to target Paris, and this is when they start talking Paris's game up. They start saying, Paris has played an amazing social game. She's never been on the block. You need to take a shot at her. But obviously the move remains Johnny. But this is going to get into Kayla's head going into the next week, and Kayla is going to start to perpetuate this perception as well, that Paris is a great social player, which is not going to work out great for her when it comes to the jury time if she's sitting up there next to Paris. But this is where it starts, with Allie and Liv wanting to keep Johnny safe and go after Paris.
I'm with you. I have like very few notes for this week, just because looking like we're talking about Kayla here. So I'm looking through, everything about Kayla from this week. And I'm just like, man, like they really everything that Johnny was doing in that week, where we were just praising everything, deservedly for him. And Kayla and Derek are locked in the HOH room for the entire time this is happening. And then when they emerge, and then Johnny convinces them and all this stuff that we'll get into. But it's like I don't know. They had won the HOH, and you would think that wow, like they had just been saved from themselves with the Canada thing, and here they are with another HOH, and they can get somebody else out. Obviously they want Johnny because Johnny is clearly going to be coming after them, and they just let the rest of the house do whatever the rest of the house wants to do while they're I guess maybe making a second HOH bubble bath or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. One of the few things that they do during the week is Derek is going to propose a Final Four to Paris and Will. I've talked about that on all 3 podcasts because that ends up being the Final Four. He tells Kayla about it, and Kayla's like, I don't like that Final Four. I would prefer Allie and Paris in the Final Four. But they are going to put Johnny and Ryan up on the block. Derek is going to win the veto. And really, again, Dela just goes quiet. They are absent from the happenings in the house. Very much the opposite of when Johnny is HOH, and there's a lot of campaigning when Johnny's like in every room with him. And they basically resurface when Allie and Liv come to them and say, hey, so we want Johnny to stay. And they're like, Wait, what?
Excuse me?
Well, hold on. What's happening here? And they're like, look, Johnny, he might not be coming after you. We know Ryan is coming after you. Plus, Paris has Ryan, and we know that Paris is a huge threat in this game. And pretty quickly, Kayla is going to be convinced. And Derek is going to go off, and Paris is going to tell Derek that she doesn't want Johnny to stay, which is going to convince Derek to keep Johnny. So Kayla is going to go to Johnny and be like, okay, I can make a deal with Johnny. I still hate Ryan. This is a great chance to get Ryan out, maybe make a deal with Johnny. She says to Johnny, I might vote to keep you, but I need assurances. I'm worried about Derek having social connections. I don't have social connections. I need Kayla people. I need you to be a Kayla person. And Johnny says, I'm willing to be a Kayla person. And I think this holds true. Johnny remains a Kayla person in the jury house. So she does good work here with Johnny, even though it was a mistake to let him stay. And they talk about Derek, and they talk about how she's worried about him, and she needs to play her own game, and she needs to cut him in the end, and all of those things. She eventually meets back up with Derek, and she's like, look, we should keep Johnny. And Derek is like, yes, I agree, we should keep Johnny, because he went on his own spirit journey with Paris. And there you go. That was their week.
And to go, like, you know, not to jump too far ahead or anything, but going into next week where Johnny is HOH and he has Dayla on the block, he did want to keep Kayla safe. Like, after all of the work that Kayla put in here, you know, at first, before this is pre-veto, he wanted Derek to go, and he said keeping Kayla in is the better move for me. He was trying to convince other people that keeping Kayla was obviously better. Derek had to go. So, you know, now that she realizes that this is probably happening and Johnny's probably staying, I think she does the best with it that she could have. But it's just like, I mean, just the timeline of it all. It was like the Monday and Tuesday is when Johnny was doing all the work. When, you know, Tuesday night, everyone is going up and saying, like, should we tell Dayla? Should we not tell Dayla that we're keeping Johnny? I think it was Wednesday morning. Allie and Liv go to Dayla, and they're like, all right, we're going to keep Johnny. And then, you know, the rest of the day, Wednesday, is all the time that Kayla had left to figure out what to do with all this information and what to do with the way the game was moving forward. So, I mean, I guess she did the best with what she had on the table here, but it's just like that entire Monday and Tuesday is where it's like, you really should not have let this get away from you.
Yes. So ultimately, we see Ryan evicted unanimously. Kayla is a vote to evict Ryan from the house. Heading into week 8, we see Johnny win the HOH. And again, this is a huge turning point in all of these recaps. This is when the entire strategic landscape of the house just gets completely leveled. He calls the house meeting. Everything is exposed. Kayla gets into an argument with Paris about what happened during Kayla's HOH week. She yells at Paris. She yells at Maddie. There's a lot of yelling that's happening, disagreements about who said what and when, and eventually just all of the secrets are exposed, the real deal, everything comes out into the open, and she's going to make pitches to Johnny. She's throwing everything out there that she can throw out there, like, let's make a 5-person alliance, let's make a something alliance, like so on and so forth, but nothing is going to work. Johnny is convinced that he needs to put up Kayla and Derek, and he wants Derek out of the house because he's the better competitor, and he's made a deal with Kayla.
Yes. Sorry to back up for like 2 seconds, but when Ryan goes out, did we mention the goodbye message just to put it into the timeline?
Yes, yeah. Sorry. Totally right to do that. So when Ryan is evicted, the goodbye message, man, I wish I had the, do you have the transcript or
I
like
don't,
exactly
but,
what you
I
said?
mean, we know what she said. It was just like, I'm not sorry to see you go and something like that. And
yeah,
goodbye.
Really, like, and I highly, like, go back, listen to the goodbye messages from Ryan. You can probably find it on Twitter or somewhere. Just Google like Ryan BB Can 6 goodbye messages. The stark contrast between Paris's, in particular, goodbye message to Ryan, which was like, I love you so much. I'm so sorry to see you go. I didn't want this to happen. So on and so forth.
Johnny's.
Johnny's was amazing. Even Derek's was, no, sorry, Derek didn't do one to Ryan. I think. At least I don't think. I'm trying to remember.
I just remember everybody's but Kayla being decent.
But yeah, everybody's except for Kayla. And then Kayla comes on the screen and she's just like, I am not sorry to see you go. Like, I've been out, like, you know,
you've been trying to get us out. You've been trying to play the whole house. You've been the mastermind, like something to that effect. That was
really, like, really rubbing it in his face that that he's gone. And for Kayla to say this to Ryan again, it's like it's the thing where it's like if he got by somebody that he knew, like, oh man, you got me. Like he is, I guarantee you, he is the kind of person that would be like, you got me. Applause to you. And I'm sure that he was told in the jury house that Paris had a hand in some of his evictions. But he probably didn't care because he loves Paris. And he probably felt like, oh, well, Paris, that was probably a good move by Paris. But the fact that this was so dumb, the fact that Kayla nominated him the previous week, and that was so dumb. The fact that Kayla got him evicted this week was so dumb over Johnny. Ryan knew, what the hell are they thinking? Leaving Johnny in the house over me. That is the dumbest thing in the world. And the fact that Kayla is taking credit for it, the fact that she's saying this was my plan to evict you over Johnny. He's like, that is so dumb. You let your hatred for me get in the way of your game. You know, we'll talk about it, but we've seen these new ET Canada jury videos. Ryan will not vote for Kayla under any circumstances. And it has a lot to do with this goodbye message and the two previous weeks where just the way that she's handled him.
She's a very big fan of this game, and that just tells me that, you know, she did watch the last 2 seasons of Big Brother US. Goodbye messages, especially last season with Josh, they are a real factor. And besides just a goodbye message, just making somebody feel good on the way out it's just the jury management 101 of it all. And I think we talked about this a little like recently about how maybe Kayla just didn't think that she had a shot to even get to the end at this point. Maybe she didn't, like, she just kind of lost focus of the jury and of that maybe I do have a chance to win it all. But she just completely like the train got completely derailed, and you know there's no excuse for this goodbye message. You know, we'll give her all the praise in the world for the things that she did good, but this is just like one of the worst possible things. It's a 7-person jury, and she's turning it into a 6-person jury if she wants to find 4 votes, because there's no chance she's getting Ryan's, no matter what influence Johnny might have over Ryan. There's no chance.
Yeah, and it's just it's unfortunate. Like there's no reason for this to happen, and it exposes the fact that she was just so blindly fooled by Johnny. Like it not only exposes her hatred of Ryan and makes Ryan hate her back, but it also exposes the weaknesses in her game, which gives him the rational excuse to not vote for her, as well as the emotional excuse. So it's just it's the worst of all worlds here. Yeah.
So we'll get into that more, I guess, with the ET Canada stuff later on. But sorry, you know, back to what you were saying about the next HOH week with you know, Johnny, and all the people are fighting in his room, and
yes.
And this was some fun feeds. This is the one that we were that I was on the recap with you guys, and we were being told by the chat room that the house is blowing up and we weren't able to watch it.
Yeah, lots going on here, and we don't get into the details of it because most of it ends up not mattering anyway. Because it just like I said, all the secrets come out. Everybody is now in their own group, which is what Johnny needs to have happen if he wants to survive the triple. And you know, we talked about it with Brent, we talked about it with Puya. Johnny does great work to keep himself safe here, but unfortunately for him, his plan does not go through. So he nominates Kayla and Derek. He's piling up the votes. He's rounding them up to evict Derek. He convinces Paris. That was the main key to make sure that Derek left over Kayla. Unfortunately, that backfires on him because Paris goes to Kayla and says, I might vote to keep you. That rekindles their bond just enough so that when Derek wins the veto, Paris immediately is going to go, okay, let's talk about keeping Kayla in this game. Paris is going to go to Kayla. Kayla is going to make a pitch to Paris. Paris is not going to buy the pitch. She doesn't like it. She doesn't think she can trust Kayla. She thinks Kayla made some okay points, but she doesn't think she can trust Kayla. However, after Maddie talks to Allie and Allie says, I don't need your vote, Maddie is fully like, well, screw Allie then. And Maddie is completely anti-Allie, not pro-Kayla, but she's anti-Allie. She goes to Paris and says, I don't want to keep Allie in this game. Allie is very frustrating to me. And at that point, Paris goes, okay, I mean, I did talk to Kayla and she is making these promises. I don't really trust her, but if you're on board, then I think I can be on board too. Maybe we should keep Kayla. That gets the ball rolling. From that point on, to not belabor the point of how many times they went back and forth, anytime that either Paris, Maddie, or Will comes to Kayla did not do any active campaigning. She just let them come to her. Anytime they came to her, she said, 100%, I promise you, I will target Johnny and Olivia in the triple eviction. Both Derek and I will do this. We promise. Derek promises on his family. I promise on my cats. And they eventually come around, eventually get the trio to believe them. Obviously, Johnny tries to interrupt them. Johnny fights back, and this causes the back and forth. And until the day of eviction, the trio is set to evict Kayla. Paris goes to Allie one more time. I just want confirmation. We talked about this yesterday. I want confirmation. Who would you put up? What would you do if somebody won the veto? Allie goes, don't do this to me. She gets mad at Paris. Paris gets mad at Allie. They flip back over. They want to evict Allie now, but it's still going to go back and forth up until the very, very last second when they vote. But Kayla did a good enough job of selling to the trio that they would be loyal, that she left the door open for them to come back in. And I do think she got lucky that Allie helped push them in that direction, and that they were in that direction at the time that the eviction happened. If the eviction had happened an hour earlier, then I think Kayla leaves. If it happened an hour later, then maybe, who knows? It was very, very down to luck by the end. But you cannot discredit the good work that Kayla did in convincing the trio that they could trust her. So that is sort of how you might want to view this when you think about how did Kayla stay this week.
I also give her a lot of credit for the way she handled some of the confrontation that she was in that week when she was fighting with Paris in the HOH room, and then later in the week where her and Allie get into that big screaming match that won that Big Brother Canada award. I always felt like Kayla was staying calm enough and not making it personal. It was always about the game, and she was just never letting it get to that level where, you know, somebody would come away with it like with bitter feelings towards her as a person. It was always about the game. It was always like, you know, like they were arguing back and forth about game points or whatever, but nobody was ever like, all right, Kayla like is like awful. Like we need to get her out of here because she's just like, we can never fix this. We can never work with her. She just always kept a level head, which I appreciated. Yeah.
And you know, when I say like it came down to luck, you know, you cannot discredit the amount of work it takes to not make any mistakes. And Kayla did not make any mistakes that week. She spent the entire game making mistakes and then making great moves to make up for it. That was the one week where she didn't make a great move. No. But she also didn't make mistakes. And that's hard to do when Johnny is breathing down your neck, screaming at you every 2 seconds. She prevented herself from making any mistakes, and Allie made tons of mistakes. It's like when you're playing ping pong or tennis and your goal is to just like, you know, play easy until somebody else makes a mistake, right? Like that's what she was doing, and it was effective and it worked. And again, there was a lot of luck involved, but you know, you cannot discount the amount of work it took just to not make a mistake that week.
And I mean, a lot of it is, you know, just with these particular people. She had Paris as one of the votes. She had obviously Maddie, and then Will and Derek had, you know, their connection. And is this the week that Derek is doing all the work with trying to bro it down with Will?
Yeah, Derek is doing a lot of work here too, and we talked about that on Derek's week. And honestly, I think that Derek's family swear meant more to them than Kayla's cat swear.
You sure?
But ultimately, you know, I think it comes down to the both of them being believable.
Yes. Very good work by both of them this week.
Yes. So Allie ends up evicted, and you know, again, like if Will goes first, who knows? Maybe it's different. But the triple eviction happens. Derek pulls out another must-win HOH competition here. Dayla is gone. You know, I guess Kayla would have won the veto regardless, so Kayla wouldn't have left, but Derek would have. Actually, let's.
Well, Derek could have played. He didn't play in the veto.
Right, Derek. Derek definitely, I think, has a.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that Johnny would have won it just by looking at the competition at first, but I don't know. He was struggling with getting the pieces in, and hard to say.
Let's just assume that Kayla still beats Derek in that veto competition. She stays to the final 5. She still wins the HOH, or no, but because Johnny would probably still be there. Well, Johnny would have a shot at that HOH.
Well, who are we saying won the HOH here?
Just anybody.
Like anyone
I
else?
think anybody would have targeted at least one of Dela.
Yeah.
So it would have been a tougher road.
This is the HOH where it was like like everybody got that last question wrong about who said it or whatever, and Derek was the only one who got it right. So I mean, Derek wasn't losing that HOH. I don't know what that, I don't remember what that question was, but good for him.
Yeah, and so must win competition to take down, and Derek does it. And he puts up Johnny, Olivia, and Maddie, and they keep their word. Ultimately, Kayla wins the veto. She does consider this is a trio. Should I keep Liv in the house so that it's two of the trio and Liv so that they're not united against us? But ultimately, she decides it's worth it to keep her word. And follow through. I talked about, I think she made the right call. And I still think that is the case. Although I do think that she might get a little more credit with the jury ultimately. In hindsight, again, this is totally results oriented, but thinking about her versus Paris, I think that this is a move that Paris is going to get a little bit of credit for. The fact that Kayla didn't make this move. And if Kayla had made this move, she might get a little more credit over somebody like, if she puts Paris up on the block here, I think it makes Paris look a little less effective in the game. But this is very, very nitpicky in hindsight, and I do not blame her. I think she made the right call in the moment. But she did consider making this move. And so it's just playing scenarios out in my head.
Yeah. I agree. I think that keeping Olivia, like there was, a benefit here and there, but getting Olivia out of the game, who, the house was filling up with her jury votes at this point. It's like, the trio, it's like they hadn't won a single comp. There was very little respect for pretty much all of them. Like, it's crazy how when Maddie showed up at the jury house, like Johnny, Ali, and Liv are sitting there like, oh, like Maddie, we didn't want to see you. Like, they probably wanted to see anybody in the house more than they wanted to see Maddie, which was crazy to me. Olivia had all the friends in the world that were building up there, and anybody else that was going there, nobody had bitter feelings towards her. So I think she could have been a threat down the line. So getting her out here probably did just as much good as, I think it was good.
Yes. So the triple eviction is over now. Johnny and Olivia leave the house, and at this point, with Johnny finally gone, Derek and Kayla can reign supreme once again. They haven't been in charge of this house since Johnny left their side on week 3 when he heard that Jesse said his name. But Johnny is now finally gone, and they finally have control over these people. And at this point, Kayla wins the next HOH. It's another must win, to be fair, but she does manage to take it home. And again, it comes down to a tiebreaker. So a little bit of luck involved, a little bit of skill involved there. Wants Paris. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there, and the people that they're left in the game with, it's just this toxic trio who we see just completely, explode after the damage of having to make that decision. Like we had talked about that week, you said the game broke them. Making that decision just completely like shattered them, as they had nowhere left to turn to think. They were just so like in shambles, and they couldn't have asked for a better 3 at this point, because they're all just a mess. You have Will, who, we'll get to the final 5 veto competition. It's like they could not have handpicked a better 3 people to be competing against in competitions and, mentally.
Yes. So she wants Paris up on the block. She doesn't want Paris to be able to say she was never nominated. She also wants to put Will up next to Paris. Derek says no. He feels like the better plan is to leave Will off the block. That's ultimately what they go with. She nominates Paris and Maddie. Derek is going to make a deal with Will, where Will is going to swear on his family that he won't use the veto. Derek will then talk Will off of the veto competition, which will allow Kayla to take it home. Kayla is going to be talking a lot this week about, I can't take Derek to the final 2. Nobody will respect me if I do that. I need to cut him. 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 And I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this.
No, definitely not. And, the problem is, besides the fact that she's, shoving that down their throats, it's like Maddie and Maddie and Paris both also feel like, we can make this happen. We can go to her and we can, this is the right move for her. She should cut Derek now. And they genuinely feel that, which is why they feel like this pitch would work, because they're like, of course this makes sense. Like, she needs to cut Derek now, because if she gets to the end with him, she told me back in week 2, Maddie could be thinking that she can't get to the end with Derek. She needs, so you can't bring your showman to the final 2 because people won't respect you. And Maddie and Paris both believe that this is the right move. So when Kayla is going to them and saying, listen, I know that I can't beat Derek. I know that, I will have to cut him eventually. And we'll get more into this also with the ET Canada videos and what Maddie had to say there. But Maddie is not going to walk away from this feeling good about Kayla's decision to ultimately not cut Derek. So not good.
Not good. So she ultimately decides not to use the veto after Maddie and Paris tried to convince her to cut Derek. And Maddie is evicted from the game, which leads us into week 10, where Paris pulls out that clutch HOH win, and obviously nominates Kayla and Derek. They compete in the veto competition. We saw this last night. Kayla wins the veto competition. She again waffles in front of Will and Paris, saying like, I know I might need to do this. I'm considering it. I don't know if I should do this. No, I can't do this. And then I did like her speech when she evicts Will, saying, I need to, if I want to be the best, I need to beat the best. I wish that had been her message from the start. And I don't think it clearly wasn't enough to counteract the message that she's been sending all season long in conversations. But she does eventually decide to evict Will from the house, bringing us down to our final 3 of Paris, Kayla, and Derek.
Now, are people still debating whether or not it was a good move for her to cut Will there over Derek? Because I don't personally think that was the spot for her to cut Derek, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at it from like a basic, like, Kayla wants to be in the final 2, it's not even a question. Paris would bring Will. Will would bring Paris. So it's just like, if she wants to get herself into the final 2, just the way that things have played out, she needs to keep Derek in the game, because Derek has said he will bring her, and she has way more reason to believe that than she has to believe either Will or Paris saying they'll bring her. So
yeah, and this is a move which, like, now that we know more about the jury, it's another thing that in hindsight, I think we can say ultimately this might be where she lost the game, because maybe she can't beat either Paris or Derek. But like, if she's going to win the HOH, then she would have been able to take Will, and she can beat Will. However, I think the risk is too great. You don't know that that's going to be the case with the jury. It's really hard to read where the jury might go. And I do think that leaving Paris in the game with Derek means that if Paris wins the HOH, she takes Kayla, and if Paris takes Kayla, I think that Kayla wins. So I do think this was ultimately the correct decision.
Turning the final part of the final HOH comp into a must-win is just, if you can avoid that, you need to avoid that. And if she has an opportunity where she could be brought there and not just have to win her way there, she has to go with that. So there's no debate for me.
Yes. So that's where we end up. Then we saw the final 3. They got to talk with the winners. And this is when hold on. Let's talk about the jury videos first. So just to cap off Kayla's game, we saw some interviews with the jury. Johnny, Olivia, and Allie are still pro Dela at the moment. They did express some amount of doubt in terms of, well, we might be willing to vote for somebody like Paris. Allie in particular seemed the most willing to flip over, but I think for the most part, they will be voting for either Derek or Kayla if they're there. And if it's Derek and Kayla, I think they will be voting Kayla. However, I do think their opinions of Derek have risen based on the information given to them by people like Will and Maddie. Seeing Derek talk Will off of the veto, I'm sure, helped his estimation of rise, helped their opinion of him rise. Yeah. We're nearing on 2 hours here.
I mean, but the way you look at it, still, even if if we're going to talk about the breakdown of votes at this point, Allie, Liv, and Johnny could still be, voting for Kayla. But if we're looking at that final 2 of Derek and Kayla, Paris. Like we
Yes.
got it. She got to get the Paris vote. And,
So
we haven't had feeds for the past week, so I have no idea where Paris is going to go.
yeah, which is crazy. But so they are locked in on Dela, but probably Kayla. There are rumors that I don't know if because these might be spoilers. We won't talk about it actually.
I mean, there was nothing from Hamster Watch, so I don't feel like
no official confirmed spoilers yet. So we'll avoid talking about that for the present time. We heard from Ryan and Maddie. Ryan said, and we talked about this all recap long, under no circumstances will he be voting for Kayla, and basically gave the reasons that we talked about. And then Maddie talked about I was streaming on Twitch last night and I was watching these videos live and reacting to them. And as soon as Maddie said this, I was like, Maddie has Kayla clocked. Maddie said about Kayla that she has romanticized the idea of I'm going to cut my showmance at the final 3. She has made her entire game about it, and she has lost perspective on anything other than that romanticized idea, that a romanticized story in her head, that this is what she's going to do. And she doesn't respect that. Maddie doesn't respect that. And you'd better believe Maddie talked about like Paris stepped up her game. She won that final 4 HOH. She was looking for any excuse to vote for Paris. I fully believe that Maddie is a locked vote for Paris.
Yep.
Will made no qualms about it. He is voting for Paris no matter what. So there are 3 locked votes for Paris, 3 probable votes for Kayla. It all comes down to where Derek might vote if it is Paris versus Kayla.
Well, we did see the Johnny video with Ali and Liv, where Johnny sounded like he was he said that he still respects Kayla or Dela as a whole, but he sounded like he was looking for an opportunity to maybe vote somewhere else, because like he was saying that he'd been in battle with Dela all game, and he's like, part of me still feels like I'd like to get the edge over them. So I think he is like the one person who, like, the final speeches, if anybody's going to be swayed by final speeches, if Paris says something to them, which hopefully it's, for her case, it's been corrected after talking to the winners. If Paris says something that blows him away in the final questioning, that could be the one vote that sways over to her side, even if Derek does vote for Kayla.
I'm going to disagree with that. I think that the sense I got from the interviews was that everyone, or at least most people, they were trying to be as neutral as possible, as to like be a little bit vague, not give it all away. Like when the way that Johnny was talking, I feel like he was just he was being vague. I think Johnny is a vote for Kayla no matter what. I think Ali is the person that might end up switching over a little bit. I do think that I'm sure that Johnny has been disappointed to see the other people in jury come in and be like, no. One of the key words that Ryan was saying was that Kayla's game has been messy. It's really messy. And with the history of Big Brother in the last couple of years, having a messy game that is that has bad jury management is a reflection on your ultimate game. And I do think that is lowering Kayla's estimation. Lowering Johnny's opinion of Kayla in the jury house. That being said, I do think that he is locked on to Kayla. But we'll see. It's
just I think that they do have a little bit of like they had no reason to vote for Paris at all a week ago when they had, Paris had won no comps or whatever, and now Maddie comes in and she's like, no, not Maddie, Will comes in and he lets them know Paris won the final HOH. That's why, not the final, the final 4 HOH. That's why I'm here. And if they get to the finale and they see this underdog, rise and defeat Dela, and she's this is the thing again, we've been talking so much about who takes who has a big factor in it. If Kayla takes Paris, I think that's really going to help Kayla get, like her votes should be fine. And again, there's
Kayla takes Paris.
Yeah, that's no. If Kayla takes Paris, because I'm starting to agree with Brent that Derek. There's so many names, God, that Derek would vote for Kayla still in that scenario. I know I've said, and everyone has said, well, what's your opinion on that?
So
I know
you think Kayla taking Paris is better than Paris taking Kayla?
No. I'm just talking about the 2 separate scenarios. Like, okay. I think Kayla being brought is still the better scenario for her. But even if Paris brings Kayla, even if Kayla is the one brought, I still think that Paris has a chance, because she's the underdog who won the final 2 comps to get herself there. She overcame Dela at the end of the day. So I think if she wins, that is the reason why anybody who wasn't going to vote for her would vote for her. But talking about Kayla, there is the factor of will Derek vote for her and give her that vote she needs for Kayla. I do think after hearing Derek say last night he would not want to lose to Paris, I do think that puts me in the mindset that he will vote for Kayla, even though he said that he won't. Again, there's been a whole week that they've been in the house and they've been talking about all these scenarios, and Derek going in to tell the winners. I'd like to think that Kayla is going to bring me, but I know she's a super fan of the game. Makes me realize or think that he realizes that there's a chance that she won't bring him. And if he does accept that that's a possibility and doesn't actually stay bitter, which I feel like he really might not, then there's so many scenarios. It's crazy.
So looking at the potential final 3 outcomes here, Kayla, if she cuts Derek and takes Paris, we know there are 3 locked votes against Kayla in Ryan, Maddie, and Will. And then so the question is, will Derek vote for Kayla if she cuts him? He has said both to her and to the diary room, I will not vote for her. I will never speak to her again. She will be dead to me. He said in the episode last night, talking to the winners, that he would never take the risk of losing to Paris when he could lose to Kayla instead. And I know that Brent and you seem to think that because he said that, like, why would he ever give it to Paris? He doesn't want to see Paris win. I took it as the opposite of that, actually. I took it as he would never do that to Kayla and have like both him and Kayla lose because he takes Paris. He would never do that to Kayla. So I think the fact that if Kayla does that to him, that is the worst case scenario. And I think he wants to make that happen because I think that Derek genuinely feels like, I would never make that mistake. I would never make the mistake of taking Paris over me, because what if Paris wins? And so that's the reason why he's telling Kayla she can't take him. And so if she cuts him, then the way to prove to her that she made a mistake and that she shouldn't have done this is to say, Paris wins now. Are you happy? This is what happens. This is what happens when you betray me. I wouldn't have done this because of this exact reason. But now you see what happens. Paris wins the game.
You're showing a lot more emotion than I can imagine Derek showing. I mean, maybe, but I feel like the passion that you have towards this might be more than Kayla's.
That's on the inside when he's casting the vote. On the outside, I mean,
he's like I'll be
shouldn't have done this.
Yes, I'll be very fancy fencerton with this one. Just I'm not saying I'm fully on board with that he's going to vote for Kayla. It just like I do feel like after seeing that there's a lot of potential for him to, but it's so hard to tell right now. It's like he has given us no reason to believe that he would vote for Kayla. It's just like after hearing what he said about how wanting Paris to not win, but that was against him. So I'm like it's so hard with this one vote here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Doomchive. I'm having a hard time taking a stand on this one.
I personally think that Paris is going to win this game if Kayla takes her. I think that Derek will vote for Paris to win. I think that Kayla will lose. But it could go either way. And there have been days and days that we have not seen the feeds. Things could have changed. Yeah. Kayla could have spent this time convincing Derek to vote for her if she cuts him. And so,
well, you have to think if she's trying to convince him, like, vote for me still if I cut you, then he's going to be like, well, I'll just take Paris then if you're thinking about cutting me.
Well, right. But theoretically, if it got to a point where it was Kayla versus Paris in the final part of the competition, she has a lot of time to be like, okay, Derek. About what needs to happen and about what needs to happen here.
Have you said, like, do you remember any other final threes where it's been this close, like going into it?
No.
Because your memory would be much better than.
I mean, maybe Big Brother 6. And people have been comparing Kayla to Yvette, actually, because Yvette, a lot of situations came down to who's going to take who in that final 3 in Big Brother 6. And Yvette also lost some jury votes based on her goodbye messages. So there are a lot of similarities there.
Deep pull.
Yes. But I personally, I think it could go either way. But I do think that I personally do think that Derek if nothing changes in the time that the feeds have gone out, would vote to have Kayla lose the game. One of the things that I've been thinking of is how soon after the Final Four eviction did they talk to the winners? Did they do it right after the eviction, or was it like a day or so after? Because that matters a lot in my analysis of things. Did you have
I think it was Monday, just because I know, just based off like them, I guess, social media and stuff outside of the house. It seemed like they had most of them had gotten to Toronto on Sunday or Saturday. It seems most likely that they filmed it on Monday, but I mean, it's really, you know, no way to know for sure. And there really haven't been like many spoilers coming out of anything going on this week. But it seemed like it was Monday. But no, wait, no, the competition. Saturday was the eviction.
Saturday was the eviction. The feeds went out Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, they could have played the part 1 on Sunday and then talked to them, but it's a weird timeline.
Well, I mean, the thing that matters most to me is that on Saturday, I was thinking, I don't think that Kayla cuts Derek. I don't think she was sure of it, so if the winner thing happened right after that, I think that maybe she was just saying that to like there wasn't anything to change her mind. However, if they talked to the winners days after Saturday, the last time we saw them on the feeds, then I think it's very likely that something happened in the house to change Kayla's mind to make her so gung ho about cutting Derek.
Because Arissa was on the screen, right? So could that have been a pre-recorded message from Arissa where she catches them all on the couches and she's like, "You're going to talk to Big Brother royalty." So I don't know if that was the same day because she was on the screen, or if it was just a message that she had taped. It could have been either.
I'm not sure, but like I was saying, like if it was days later, that says to me that there's probably something that happened, some conversations that happened, like, because I think that Kayla's mindset has shifted from Saturday to potentially Monday whenever she talked to those winners. Maybe she has convinced Derek to vote for her, and so now she feels comfortable cutting him. Or maybe they got into a fight and she's like, screw him. Who knows? But I do think something has changed. Something has shifted to make her feel that way. So maybe that's a good sign in terms of Derek's vote. But
I really, going into Saturday, I really felt like Kayla was, I don't know. I felt like Kayla wasn't leaning towards evicting Derek just because it's Paris, just because because they're afraid of Paris in the end, and they've been afraid of her all game. But it's, after watching that, it's like hard to see any scenario where if Kayla wins, she's going to evict Derek if she has the choice.
Yes. And then one final thing about the winners is that I do think Paris benefited greatly from this conversation. The speech that Paris gave to them, I thought was god awful. It was really bad. She was like, I was alone in this game and Kayla had Derek, and just like a bunch of nonsense. And the winners gave her some great advice. And I think that her speech is going to be much better based on the advice she got from the winners. And I think that could be a huge contributor to making sure she retains the votes that she has and potentially picks up a couple more.
I mean, the one piece of advice that I'll pick out that I didn't care for is she's like, "Oh, should I talk about how I'm in law school?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that's
I do like that, because
I don't know.
Look, we talked about Paris's game yesterday and how she tried to do mastermind things. She tried to do power plays and all of them failed. And she thinks that they didn't fail. She was planning on saying, I was a power player. I made power plays. But the real strength of her game was survival in her social game. And she wasn't going to talk about that as much. But that is the true strength of her game. And the jury recognizes that. So I wanted her to focus on her social game. And the winners essentially told her, focus on your social game, focus on the fact that you were not nominated for so long. And she was like, okay. And but here's the key part of this, right? Where the argument against Paris is going to be like, well, the reason she was never nominated is because she was never a threat, and because she was not a big power player in the game. Like, she wasn't doing anything. But when Paris says, no, listen, I'm actually in law school. Like, I hid that from you going into the game. This was an intentional strategy on my part from day one to convince you guys that I was an idiot. But really, I'm not. And hopefully you can see that. Like, I'm in law school. Like, it proves to them that this was intentional, as opposed to like, this is just like a player that was dumb, who just kind of floated along.
Yeah, I definitely see your point. I'm just like thinking about how like little time they have to talk to the jury, and how if I'm looking for Paris to tell me things about like, I mean, I know that you can like tie that, like you just said, you could tie it back into part of her strategy, but I'm looking for I feel like jury members are very often focused towards like what move did you make, what this, what that, and if she spends like, 5 out of her 20 seconds talking about just like I went to law school, and not like, I don't know, not making it about them. I like to hear when people make it about the jury members and not about themselves, and about how they used, how the jury members like were a part of their game to make them still feel included. Not talking about yourself as much, but I do see your point.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a chance that she goes on about like, actually, I'm in law school, and that means I'm super smart. And like, if she just like focuses way too much on that, then it could totally.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if she ties it in the way that you're saying, then
Yeah.
that does sound good. But if she just throws it out there as like a random fact, like, by the way, I went to law school, like I am smart and whatever, then I don't know, it might just be useless. And the fact that it was Phil giving her that advice to throw it in her speech, I'm like, please just don't listen to anything Nick or Phil say.
Hey, they did good. They did really well in the jury questioning. They managed to
I just see all of these other great people that they could be listening to, and I'm like, just keep it all.
But seriously, of all the winners, the brothers are the only people that I think actually swayed jury votes in the jury questioning. So you got to hand it to them there.
It wasn't that hard to sway votes off of Kelsey, was it?
Well, no, but
I don't know.
I guess you could theoretically say Jillian making Topaz really mad helps sway.
Okay. That was so awkward when Kayla was like, would you have cut Emmett? And she's like, no. And she's like, well, I'm a different person, so don't take that.
Oh man, it's the irony there is so crazy too, because you could see just how much Kayla was judging Jillian for that decision.
Yeah.
But this is why Kayla might lose the game, because she feels this way, because she's been creating that judgment and that reality in the house for so long, and them telling her to be more empathetic. Like it's like you had this plan, and it's exactly what Maddie said. This romanticized vision of like, I'm gonna cut the showmance. It's gonna be a great moment. I'm gonna win the game, but it might really hurt her. But ultimately, yes. I think that the story of Kayla's game is one of, she gets in a strong position. She makes some mistakes, and then her game starts to flounder, and then she makes a great move, and it puts her back in a good position that quickly starts to deteriorate again, deteriorate. Makes another great move, it deteriorates more, and then makes another good move or wins a competition. There are a few competition wins in there that saved her, or held her on as her game deteriorated. But every once in a while, she'd make a really great move and prop her game back up, and that's very impressive. And it's again very different from Derek's game, where he was a lot more steady throughout, but never made any really great moves apart from talking Will down and saving them from Hamza.
Yes.
So when I look at this, I do think that Kayla played the best game of the three of them here. The mistakes were obviously apparent. I think that a lot of her mistakes were forced errors. They were not because she's bad at the game. They were because she was up against tougher competition. I do think that Johnny was a better player, and he forced her to make a lot of errors that she wouldn't have otherwise made. But she got kind of lucky. She managed to survive and fight back, and she managed to outlast Johnny, and that put her in a great spot. Paris is the other person who forced some errors on her. Paris forced an error on her in week 2 when she convinced her to turn on Allie and Liv. She forced an error on her when she was HOH, when she got her to go against Ryan. That was a huge one. And then Johnny, just throughout the course of the entire season, was forcing errors on her, but she was always able to recover and pivot and make a move to put herself back in a spot to do well in the game. And I think that shows just how versatile she was and how good she was at the game to get to where she was. I don't think that Derek could have made it on his own. I don't think that Kayla would have been as successful without Derek, but I think that she would have been more successful than Derek would have been if he had been on his own. Mm-hmm. So I would give more credit to Kayla than Derek. overall, I would also give more credit to Kayla than Paris. Kayla was pretty good at Paris was better survivor, but Kayla was a much better power player, and she had way more influence over the course of the game. So I do think that Kayla is the most deserving winner in terms of the game play. However, looking at the jury and how the jury sees them, I do have to say that Paris, I think, catches up to Kayla in terms of like how good they are as players a little bit, because Kayla has lost 3 votes for sure, and Paris has 3 votes for sure. That's pretty impressive on Paris's part, and a mistake on Kayla's part to take Paris there. But ultimately, I still think that Kayla is the better player.
Right. So that's where my question was going to be for you, that you said that you think Paris is, after seeing everything last night, Paris is the most likely winner. So your path is, you think that the 2 of them end up final 2 and Derek votes for Paris, or is there a different way?
Yeah, well, I think that, looking at the possible outcomes here, I'm focusing a lot on Paris and Kayla because I think, there are some rumors that might be where the HOH is going. Who knows? Again, not even remotely confirmed. But I do think that if Kayla wins, she cuts Derek, she takes Paris. I think that Paris probably wins there. If Paris wins and takes Kayla, I think that Kayla wins there. Okay. So I do think it's a little bit back and forth there. But I think that I think that Kayla is more likely to win a final 3 HOH than Paris is. I think Derek wins no matter who he's up against. I think Derek wins hands down, and I think that helps also close the gap between the players here.
Derek's the one that's in the must-win situation here. He has to win and bring himself there, otherwise he's not getting there. So that's why, we don't know for sure who won the comps, but if he doesn't win either of the first 2 comps and he's not playing in part 3, then he's probably evicted in 3rd place. So.
I will say this: if Derek convinces Paris to take him over Kayla and Derek wins, I think he's potentially the best player of the 3 of them, but it's not going to happen.
And that's there. I can't. I mean, I don't want to say there's no shot, but there's no shot, right? No, that's not happening.
So you don't want to give yourself a clip for Brent to play.
Oh yeah. God. I think I have that one like looped in my head now just from hearing it so much.
Yes. All right. So that was
that's what he wanted, though.
Yes, that was Kayla's game. Do you have any final thoughts here on Kayla?
I mean, you summed it up pretty well with that last thing you just put together there. She played well every step of the way. When I was going through every step of the way, when I was going through my notes and everything that I was reviewing, it's just like I'm looking at it, I'm like, geez, how can this girl not win the game? I'm just like, she maximized every opportunity that she had, even though like she got in her own way sometimes. It just seems like out of these 3, while they all played well, nobody in this final 3 played a perfect Big Brother game by any stretch of the imagination. But I do agree with you that of these 3, I think Kayla played the best. I think it could be anyone's because of all the different scenarios of how we could get to the end here, but I don't know. I'll be happy. I really want one of the 2 girls to win. I want Kayla or Paris to take it home. I think I prefer Kayla, but I really either of them. We need one of these girls to take it home after the season of strong, powerful women inside the Big Brother Canada 6 house.
All right. Well, that's all we've got for you today. We are going to be watching the Big Brother Canada 6 finale tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be live after the finale to recap it on the RHAP podcast.
Said that so weird.
It's because I said the and I couldn't take it back. It will be Brent, Melissa, and I on the podcast, and we will be recapping everything that happens on the finale. Rob may pop in and hang out with us a little bit, but not sure. It'll be a lot of fun. Like I said, I'll be live on Twitch today, Taran Armstrong on Twitch to stream the reactions to the finale, talk to you guys as it goes on. Make sure you stay off Twitter and all social media.
Stay far away.
Yes, avoid any spoilers. Man, it's been a great season. Anybody who got through all 3 of the game recaps here, kudos to to you. You probably are very, very well studied up for this finale, and you have a lot of good ideas as to why each person might win or lose. So very excited for tonight, Matt.
Yep. Would you almost call me? I mean, I noticed this too. Like 2 hours in, I'm just like, I can't get any words out anymore. So I don't know how you do it all the time. So props to you. But yeah, it's been a great season. I had a great time doing these morning updates, and can't wait to see how it all plays out tonight. I'm very excited. I'm not very excited to have to be off social media because I'm like a drug addict. When I don't get like my Twitter, I just start like freaking out, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. But I'll do it. I'll avoid it, and can't wait to see what happens.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining me all season long on these live feed updates. They're my favorite part of every Big Brother season. So thank you to all the loyal live feed update listeners. I will see you tonight, and I will see you next time.